The college football experience. Nick Saban retires, an SEC 2024 schedule breakdown episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today, people. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S. based and legal in 40 different states. Head to Cut, that's KUTT.com, and use the promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by the SGPN NFL Playoff Challenge, sponsored by Edge Boost. Look, it's free to enter, and $20,000 in Edge Boost deposit bonuses is up for grabs. Enter today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NFL playoff. Once again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NFL playoff.
Hey, this is Derek Stevens. I'm the owner of Circa Las Vegas. You're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. SEC. No, Nick Saban retires and SEC schedule breakdown episode. Holy shit. I mean, I was sitting here having my coffee and then all of a sudden.
Well, I don't get bring the head comb.
Nick Saban news. People texting me left and right as wow. Someone's all the work I did regarding who I thought had the SEC's best schedules might all change now via this news. FYI. But folks, if you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
I mean, all past 3 weeks, I've been saying he did his best coaching job of his life this year, and he hangs it up. Go out on top in a way. I thought it was his best coaching job. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, Patty C in the place to be.
Hi-oh. Well,
let's go. Let's fucking go. I mean, wow. This 12 team, he didn't want any piece of that 12 team. Huh?
When he wasn't guaranteed a spot in the semifinals, all of a sudden the legacy is in jeopardy.
He didn't want to play that G5 team.
That's right.
I like to think it's everyone else was. Wait, you mean to tell me everyone else everyone else can buy players too now? No.
Gotta go.
No. I'm out. I left the NFL for that.
What was his famous quote about the NFL? Yeah.
Yes. Remember, he goes. In college, you can get the first pick of the draft every year.
He's like, it's almost like talent is equal here.
Joined by third man in the booth.
You have to out-coach somebody.
Yes. Wait, I gotta fucking out-coach him? No. Look, I'm joking. He's a fantastic coach, but I mean, he did say those things. They came out of his fucking mouth. We are joined by third man in the booth, the DFS god himself. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lot giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's up, guys?
Oklahoma fans are happy. They're like, oh, we're going to enter the SEC with no Saban?
Yeah.
Texas fans are rejoicing. We got no Saban?
Although they might not have their coach, depending on how this thing shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, this is wild. This is fucking wild because, well, I mean, it's not that wild because he's in his 70s. The current slate of, the current state of college football, not slate. I don't know that I would want to be in my 70s around the clock, transfer portal, all this crazy shit. But I mean, this is huge news because who do you turn to? This, first off, it's late in the coaching cycle. Who do you turn to right now? I know it's still like one of the best jobs you can get. But I mean,
they could probably get whoever they want. Right?
I mean, I don't think Jim Harbaugh would go there, but yeah, I mean,
there's one.
like Lane Kiffin would make that move today, right?
There's probably only 2 coaches that wouldn't, and those are the head coaches for Michigan and Georgia.
You think Sark would leave Texas for Alabama? I don't know if we're getting.
I don't know that he would because I think Texas has more money.
Maybe.
What about Dabo? Would he pull? Would he leave for?
I think he would, but I don't think it matters because I don't think Bama wants him anymore. I think if it was 3 years ago, it would have happened boom like that. I mean, Dabo played at Bama, but now I don't know. I don't think I think
is
it's
it Dan Lanning?
I think it's Lanning. I think I think he's probably their top candidate. I mean, Oregon was what, a top 6 team, if not better, this year, and this is only his second year at Oregon.
Yeah, he's been pretty good both years.
Yeah, so I mean, and he comes from Georgia. He knows the SEC landscape. That he's young. I mean, Bama could have him for a long time.
Yeah, he worked for 1 year under Saban, right?
That makes a ton of sense.
And he plays that style of football, big boy football.
But we all thought it would be Harbaugh maybe announcing his departure from the college football head coaching ranks. But no, Saban beats him to the punch.
Yeah, and I guess Harbaugh said something on SVP about the spring game, getting ready for the spring game. Noah has texted me that 30 times. Saying he's coming back, Colby. He's coming back. See, he's going to the spring game. McCarthy's coming back too.
Yeah, because whenever a coach says something, it's 100% accurate. They never turn back on it.
Especially that wasn't even committal. All he did was mention the spring game. Didn't commit to coming back at all.
Patty C, what'd you think overall? I mean, obviously this is huge fucking news, but what was your first reaction to hearing that Nick Saban is stepping down as the head coach of Alabama?
Well, holy shit was my first reaction. Obviously got to give the guy credit. We have a lot of arguments. You have a lot of arguments in particular, Colby, as to why you think, his claim to being the greatest coach ever
I would argue that all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
there is also a lot of ammunition for the argument that he is the greatest coach
7 natties.
It's
the top of the list.
7. Look. I'm just saying. I find it ironic that we started paying players and he wasn't winning national championships. You know what I mean?
And to that point, also, I know we got a Sparty fan in the chat. Like, look at his 5 years at Michigan State: 6-5-1, 6-6, 7-5, 6-6. Finally, a breakthrough at 9-2. But overall,
still didn't win the Big Ten.
No, overall, it was a pretty good run at Michigan State. He went 1-3 in bowl games, but at this point, I don't think we should shit on him. I think we should have to acknowledge
he's a Hall of Fame dude. I thought this year's coaching job. That's what I'm saying. Championships to me are overrated. They truly are. Like, yes, kudos to you. You had the best team with the best talent, and you won, which is the name of the game. But I thought this year was when he proved to me more than ever that he's such a great coach.
He's on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, when we have that many national championships, you have to be on there. And you can say, yes, Bama was probably paying players, but before he got there, Alabama wasn't winning like they were with him there, anywhere near. So you have to tip your cap and say,
well, I mean, he was starting to do that at LSU too. He kind of, you remember LSU in the 90s were pretty shitty. And he came into LSU and kind of, fix the program. I know, even after he left them in such great condition moving forward. I made friends with a lawyer that had worked with him at LSU and Les Miles and some of the other ones, and helped someone get paid under the table. But at the same time, he said Saban was a genius. He came in and had a blueprint for what we should do.
For sure.
You know, we were unorganized before. We didn't have the structure, and he came in, and I'm sure he did the same at Alabama and helped build that structure up to what it is today. As you know, obviously Alabama was always fucking great since Bear Bryant or Gene Stallings or whoever, but
there was never a lack of resources at Alabama, and probably at LSU either. But he certainly, you know, made sure that was not an issue.
But look, in 17 years at Alabama in the SEC West, overall his record was 201-29, and he went 117-18 in the SEC. Those numbers are phenomenal.
Incredible. That's what I'm saying. Is like, just because I can say that I would argue the best coach ever thing doesn't mean that he wasn't incredible. Like, he's a Hall of Fame coach no matter what. Because
for sure.
Let me ask you this.
Even though what's that?
The components of a great coach, okay? The administrative aspects, you know, whether it's the glad handing or the instilling discipline, you know, that's obviously one component. Recruiting, a massive one. More recently, the transfer portal. But, you know, other things that are obviously X's and O's, a big thing. Game management, adjustment. You know, where do you put him in each of those various categories?
Well, that's kind of my argument. Is I don't know on the field how great of a coach he was until this year. Like this year, like I said, I felt like I learned more about him this year than I did in the other years.
I would still say he's at least a good on the field coach.
Yes.
He's great on almost all of those. The guy is, if not the greatest coach ever, one of the top 5 greatest coaches ever.
Like LSU won a couple national championships with Les Miles and Coach O.
Right after him.
Yeah, but they were nowhere near, like they were not good on the field coaches.
Well, that's my point, though. Is to me, that's exactly my point. Is like, I think Saban's good, but I also think he's a little overrated. As far as most of the time, they just had the better team and just ran down people's throats, and you know, they were just way better at every position. And it was like, okay, are you that good of a fucking head coach? Now, he was great in realizing that he had to get some path. You know, when he went and got Sark and Lane Train. Yeah,
he was a great CEO. I mean, he's a fantastic CEO. But also, like, how good of a recruiter are you when you can, you know, bag drop? That makes your recruiting job a little bit easier.
And that's why he never won at Michigan State. You know what I mean? Like Michigan State, like I would love to see if he had stayed there and if he had been, you know, would he be this coach that everyone says is the greatest ever? I would love to have seen that.
Oh, is it 98 was this last year there? Is that the year Ohio State was
99
number 1?
was his last
99?
year.
Yeah.
Ohio State, I think, was undefeated, maybe number 1, and Michigan State beat them. Apparently that was the game in which he had committed to being process oriented, which was like, you know, his whole, you know, shtick for years there. So I don't know. I mean, yes, maybe he just figured out what he needed to do to coach. And I would say from a disciplinary standpoint, his teams were always superbly prepared. They rarely made mistakes, you know?
Sure. But here's where I'd argue is that to me, I like to see a coach win with a shitty team to know that they're good. Like to me, like I think a lot of coaches, we've seen it. Alabama's won a lot of national championships with different coaches, right? LSU has now too. So to me, it's like when I list the best coaches, I want to see them that they've won at the shittiest of levels. You know what I mean? Like, can they? Because that's when you really prove that you're a good coach to me. Is if you can win with a team that is not that talented.
Yeah.
Hey, he went 9-2 his 1 year at Toledo.
It's true. That's a great year. Yeah. And then
Small
he dipped out for the
size,
NFL.
But
although Toledo was probably the class of the MAC.
They spend the most money in the MAC. I don't know if they did then in 92 or whatever, but yeah, that's only my argument would be that is like, we know Jim Harbaugh is an amazing coach. And I've argued with Kramer. I've argued with tons of people about, we've seen Jim Harbaugh win right away at San Diego, then right away at Stanford when Stanford was awful.
Then actually winning the pros.
yeah. And then like I know he's a great coach. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
he got his natty now, but there's the easy argument is that Saban's got 7 of them compared to 1.
But still, I've never seen him at an FCS. I've never seen him at Stanford. I would love to see Nick Saban at Stanford and see how he does. That would be the perfect fucking comparison to me then, is if he could win at Stanford, win 10, 11 games at Stanford, then would I be like, okay, because to me, he's kind of had like, yes, he did an unbelievable job, but to me, they're very easy places to win in.
Right. And with the Dolphins, he didn't do a very good job.
We need him to have like a Schnellenberger, like late in life, like realization that he needs to be coaching again and come back at like 80 years old and coach Stanford. Because if he decided, in 2 years he wanted to come back at 74 years old, he would be then. Could he still get a high end job?
Yes.
Yeah. So get a Power 5.
Most people think he is the greatest coach of all time. You know what I mean? So why would anyone not?
He also looks like he's like 55 years old. So, from a recruiting standpoint, he could still sell himself.
He got that Tom Brady stem cell shit, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's the way to go.
And shout out to a friend of the program, Jerry Glanville, who actually gave him his first job in the NFL with the Houston Oilers back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, Saban's a great coach. I'm not trying to say he's a shitty coach. I just think it could be a little diluted when you're at such great institutions.
True. That's
all I'm saying.
Are the rumors of him and Belichick coaching the Washington football team false? That
yes.
was my favorite rumor I saw on Twitter. I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. I mean, because I think him and Belichick work together. They're friends. They're close.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they're Belichick's going to leave the Patriots and they're going to be on the Redskins or Commanders or
I mean, if you thought if you thought they're the Redskins. If you thought Josh Harris was going to turn the corner and not do the same thing that Dan Snyder had done and then bring in Belichick and Saban together, he'd be the super Snyder at that point.
Yeah, right.
Well, I've done all this prep. I've done like days of prep. I know NC Nick, you've been, number crunching too.
Right.
This fucks up everything, right?
It does. So Colby ranked so I came up with my SEC scheduling model to kind of quantify the strength of a schedule in conference. And so I divided the whole SEC up in rungs with 5 different rungs. And at the very top of the rung, I had Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. So the question is, does Alabama fall off that top rung?
Well,
I'd say they're not going to just completely fall into nothing.
In year one, they're the most talented team or the second most talented team in the country.
Now we'll see who leaves.
It's a little
by
late,
a healthy
though,
margin.
If Jalen Milroe leaves.
Yeah, we'll see who leaves.
That's true.
And who they hire. But for the sake of today's podcast, because this is not an emergency podcast, we were scheduled to talk about the SEC schedule, and then boom, a few hours before we go live, this happens. But I'm going to say that Alabama does not fall off the top rung of the SEC because they're going to make a good hire and they're going to keep most of the talent, I'd assume.
Yeah,
I would assume too. They have money.
They've just been good for so long that it's like you have to believe in that program.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just the coach that's going to make Alabama fall apart when he leaves.
Right.
We saw what LSU did. We just brought up LSU.
Yeah. And we were just saying that multiple head coaches have won at Alabama. So it wasn't like, he came into a nothing burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they were super hungry too at the time. But yeah, but it does change all of a sudden that game at Bama or Bama going on the road. Now you're like, well, this is a lot more winnable now.
Yeah, who's their coach?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Unless they hire Jim Harbaugh for what I just argued. All right. Okay. So that's what we were planning to do. We're going to jump into the SEC schedule. Obviously it was released a few weeks back and the season was going along. We had to preview every single, game with the bowl games, all those shitty bowl games, all the good bowl games. And we haven't got a chance to dive into the schedule. So we're going to do the SEC this week, the Big Ten next week. After that, obviously the Big 12 and the ACC and if you're lucky, the Pac-2. But folks, before we do all that, I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Look, DraftKings is an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, and it is bringing you an offer that'll help the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. So what are you doing, folks? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code SGP. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available. For a problem with gambling, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for everything: sports, music, comedy, theater, whatever's near you, essentially. And buying tickets shouldn't be that stressful. All right. With Game Time, they get killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You'll stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're going to be having at that very event. So what are you doing, folks? Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Game Time is perfect for the college basketball season right now. Obviously, that she's heating up, and the NFL playoffs. So what are you doing, folks? Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, terms apply. Create that account, redeeming code CFBX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's go.
What are we doing? Alphabetical?
Alphabetical to start. I made some fire graphics that I'm excited about, but what we'll do is we're going to rattle off, each team's schedule chronologically, touch base on the non-con, and at the end I'll give away what I think, which this might have changed. This might have just changed. What I think were the top 16 teams schedule wise, who had the hardest, who had the easiest. Now, obviously, folks, the SEC welcomes in Texas and Oklahoma, so a lot of changes, a lot of exciting. They still have the 8-game conference schedule, which I would argue, still sucks in my opinion. It should be 9, but let's get into it, because
also mention that there's no SEC East or SEC West anymore.
Oh, that's huge.
Gone.
That's huge.
So that's huge. So look, we hate conference realignment in general, but it does with the changes, with the new additions and no East and West. It makes for an interesting offseason where you can look at schedule because they're so different than they've been in the past. So it makes it kind of fun, actually.
No, it does. Big Ten as well. ACC did that last year. I remember when the Pac-12 did it before they fell apart. That's huge to me. It's huge.
The only two conferences with divisions now are the Sun Belt and the MAC, I believe.
Sun Belt and the MAC. Hanging on.
We had mentioned this before. I know I don't know if you had reposted it, a previous conversation we had about protected rivalries in the SEC. Is there confirmation of what those are at this point, or is that old news that I've just forgotten?
Yeah, I think it's old news that you forgot, because they and that could all change with the 9. But yes, they did a bunch of. I didn't prep for that, but like Texas is playing Texas A&M, I believe, every year now, right?
Okay, so it's just one though, one protected rivalry, or they have a couple.
Well,
I forgot what format they
said they're going to go to 9. Or they might go to 9. This is like they're trying out the 8-game conference schedule for 2 years. So I think that kind of fucked up everything as far as who are the set rivals. Are they going to do the 3-6 format or not? So I think right now with the 8-game conference schedule, it's a 2-game
protected rivalries.
Yeah,
okay.
Like Alabama, Auburn will happen every year, but obviously LSU, Auburn is gone this year, for example. But you play every other year then.
Alabama, LSU isn't on this year.
No, Auburn, LSU.
Oh, sorry.
That's my point.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we go. Let's talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide, folks. If you're watching on youtube.com/the college experience, subscribe. You're going to see the schedules right there for you. Boom. And right here we got the Alabama Crimson Tide schedule. I do have let me see if I can move this off of there. Let me see if I can stop this other bullshit from happening. And there you go. You see pick Dundee and the Alabama Crimson Tide, week 1, take on the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers in Tuscaloosa. Who will be the coach is the question. Then they get the return game after going to Tampa last year to Raymond James Stadium. Now South Florida, the Bulls, Patty C's Bulls are coming to Tuscaloosa.
Go Lesh.
In week 3, they head to Madison, Wisconsin. They get a bye, and this is, you got to love where the buys are at. I'll say that you got to love where the buys are at, because we'll get to it in a second. But after Wisconsin, they have a bye. So week 4, that is a bye week. Then they are home to the Georgia Bulldogs week 5, and then they are at Vanderbilt, home to South Carolina, then at Tennessee, then home to Missouri. They get a bye week. Then they're at LSU, home to Mercer, at Oklahoma, and home to Auburn. This schedule, to me, first off, shout out to them playing at Wisconsin. I wish it was in November personally, but we'll take it. I always hated how many neutrals Alabama played, but the fact that they get at Wisconsin, I like. But pay attention to the bye weeks here. So you could argue South Florida's a bye week before Wisconsin. You could also or argue, well, this one you can't. But they do have an actual bye week before Georgia, but then they get Vandy or South Carolina before Tennessee, right? Then they get, I think the hardest 2-game stretch is probably at Tennessee and home to Missouri,
which is, most years not that tough of a 2-game stretch.
That's manageable. But Colby, you also have to say, I mean, to be fair, Georgia has a bye before that Alabama-Georgia game also.
True. But
yeah, they're protecting both of their best teams.
Yeah, as does LSU as we go later on in the schedule.
Fair. But my point is that they very rarely have 2 really tough opponents back to back.
Sure, that's definitely the case here.
Now you could argue at Oklahoma, home to Auburn. See, my thing is, if it was at Auburn, then I would buy it a little more. But that's probably that. What would you say is the toughest stretch? At Tennessee, home to Missouri, or at Oklahoma, home to Auburn?
No, in Tuscaloosa they crush Auburn.
Yeah.
So I would say the Tennessee, Missouri.
Yeah,
for sure, especially
next year.
Yeah, because Oklahoma, we're not quite sure what Oklahoma's going to be. They lost a lot in the portal, So I would say the Tennessee, Missouri stretches.
I'm going to disagree with you guys, because they don't always crush Auburn at home. More often than not, they do. But a new coach here, Auburn probably licking their chops to take advantage and maybe regain control of that series. And then coming off a road trip to Oklahoma, you might, you're not probably going to get a body blow from that, but you might get banged up. They have a tough defense. So,
I guess what's tougher, at Tennessee or at Oklahoma?
Right now, I think Tennessee.
I'd lean that way too. It's close. Look,
I know his entire offensive line just hit the portal. Dylan Gabriel's gone.
Right.
Their offensive coordinator's gone.
I know they just won 10 games, so it's tough to say. What did Tennessee? Would they go 8-4 this year? So if you're looking at last year, you say maybe Oklahoma, but that's neck and neck. But I think at Tennessee, they lose Milton also.
That's a good thing, though. They got the 5-star. Yeah,
it might be. I would say at Tennessee is a little bit tougher than at Oklahoma right now.
And consider how long Oklahoma was good, and they switched coaches and they lost 2 Heisman potentially caliber quarterbacks in the process. They had to completely reinvent themselves. Brent Venables' first coaching job. Yeah, where'd they go? 6-6.
6-7.
6-7. Then they rebound and go 10-3. I don't even remember their exact number there, but they're trending back in the right direction. Year 3, you would think they're even better than they were in year 2, although losing Gabriel does.
I don't think so.
So I think as a program, they're still pretty far ahead of where Tennessee is. Maybe year to year.
I disagree. I strongly disagree. Tennessee's got the best NIL collective. A lot of people have said that they have the number 1 NIL collective in the nation. I think Tennessee, the way things are right now, are ahead of Oklahoma as far as to me, if I was ranking the SEC teams. And then I would also put Missouri over Auburn. Auburn, to me, they're not a top 30 team right now. Until they figure some things out, I thought they would be more active in the portal. They haven't brought back, they're bringing back, what's his name? Not Peyton Thorne, but the other quarterback. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Ashford.
But yeah, Robbie Ashford. Until I see better players with Auburn, I can't just say that they're better than Missouri either. Missouri's going to be loaded. Brady Cook's back. Luther Burden's probably going to be back.
Missouri, is he really?
Well, yeah. He's going to be back in college because he's not 3 years removed.
Yeah, he's only 9. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, maybe. Even if you want to say Tennessee and Oklahoma, call that a wash, I guess. I think Missouri is definitely better than Auburn, and they're both at home. I mean, the only thing you have to go is that it's a rivalry game with Auburn and crazy shit happens, but usually crazy shit happens at Auburn.
I just think Oklahoma is better than Tennessee, but I think you guys may be right overall because Missouri does look a lot better than Auburn right now.
And to Colby's point, I do love the at Wisconsin game, but in this case, Alabama gets lucky because they probably scheduled this a few years ago when Wisconsin was better because Wisconsin was basically an average team last year. And I don't know if
they didn't beat a team with a winning record. They were probably below average.
And I don't know if they're going to be any better this year. So while it's always tough to go into Camp Randall, I don't think Alabama, regardless of who the coach or quarterback is going to have any problems with Wisconsin.
Tomcat says, why are they playing an FCS team that late in the year? Mercer, week 12.
That's nothing new, Tomcat. That's what they've been doing for a decade.
Yeah. As Weehawk keys in on that too, and I definitely want to key in on the fact that there is 2 buys for everyone in college football. It seems like so far that I've seen with the schedule releases. So something to pay attention to. Now,
the interesting thing too, if I can cut you off real quick, they get the top 3 teams from the SEC East. So it seems like if you want to look at why it's kind of difficult, I think there's easier in conference schedules than what Alabama has here. And there's no Ole Miss or A&M, and we became accustomed to those matchups every year. Well, I guess not. I mean, just lately with A&M, but it'll be different with them not playing Lane Kiffin or I guess Mike Elko now.
No, well, that's the thing. Could you argue that the schedule is weaker? I know for a lot of the other ones it's stronger, but for Alabama's, is this weaker than what they normally would play in the old SEC West? Because getting they were going to get in Tennessee every year anyway, but getting Vanderbilt and South Carolina, as well as Missouri, you're getting 3 teams from the East.
That's 5 teams from the East total. So they almost flipped. It's almost like Alabama's now in the old SEC East, and they're playing only a handful of old SEC West teams. Throw in Oklahoma in the mix also. So overall, I think it's a pretty challenging schedule. But if Saban was still there, I would pencil in Alabama to be 10-2 at worst.
Yeah. Now it gets interesting. That's what I'm saying. My numbers might be all fucked now because I'm like, wait, I had this penciled in. If you're watching on YouTube, you see my strength of schedule would be 7th in the SEC. Now I don't know. I have to get back to the drawing board. But
I don't know that even with Saban, I guess with Saban you'd say 10-2 at worst. But I mean, this seems like a little bit harder of a slate than they typically would face at LSU and at Oklahoma in the same year.
And Tennessee, right?
Yeah,
those 3.
And
that Wisconsin. Those are tough road trips, but
and Georgia at home would probably beat them based on what they've been over the past couple years.
Especially a revenge game from the game they just played. So I think that's gonna be a common theme. Is that I think the SEC teams have tougher schedules this year, but I think they kind of waited to have the tough schedules until the playoff expanded because the SEC is still going to get 3 or 4 teams in this 12-team playoff. So I think they knew the schedule's tougher. They can afford to have one more loss and still be fine.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know if we want to make this blanket statement, and if you guys have this observation too, but I thought their non-conference schedules were not that impressive. And when you have an 8-game conference slate and a pretty weak non-conference slate across the board in your entire conference, that's going to pump your numbers up, And so while they are going to take 1 or 2.
I think that with the exception of a couple schools, you're going to see some real blunders on this as we continue to go through this. But that's Alabama's schedule. I thought it was, you're right. I think it is. You can make the case because at Wisconsin, at Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma, in a home game against Georgia in the Iron Bowl, that it's and Mizzou.
Yeah.
You could say that it is a harder schedule than a traditional Alabama schedule.
Agreed.
Let's move along to the Razorbacks. So many years I feel like the Razorbacks have gotten fucked by the SEC. I remember last season they were on the road for a month. Here we are with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Yes. Arkansas schedule. Week 1, they are hosting in Little Rock, Arkansas Pine Bluff. They're a terrible FCS. That should be an easy one. Then they head to Stillwater to take on the Mullet at Oklahoma State. And then Trent Dilfer and the UAB Blazers are coming to town. Then they head to Auburn, Alabama to take on Hugh Strip Club Freeze. Petrino versus Freeze. Who doesn't want to see that matchup? Then week 5, they get that filthy neutral site game at Jerry's World. Please get that out of Jerry's World against Texas A&M. Then they are home to the Tennessee Volunteers. They get a bye week. Then they're home to LSU, at Mississippi State, then home to Ole Miss, then a bye week, and then home to Texas. Glad to see that rivalry back. They fucked up Texas, I think, the last couple times they played too. Then a late season game against Louisiana Tech in week 13, and then they end the season at Missouri, the border war. Only 4 away games, 4.5 technically with the A&M game, which is basically in Texas. It's kind of an away game, but I think it's actually, here's what's crazy. I still have this as a very hard SEC schedule.
A ball buster schedule.
Yeah. So what I did before the Nick Saban news, once again, I want to preface that. I counted how many top 30 teams they'd be playing. I had Alabama playing 5. I have Arkansas playing 7 top 30 teams on their schedule.
That's tough.
That's a lot. And you know, this is another one. Look at, even though it's only 4.5 away games, Stillwater at Auburn on the Plains, you get that Jerry's World game, then in Starkville, which is very winnable, I think. And then at Mizzou, that's tough. It's tough, even though they're not traditional blue bloods, essentially. Their home games, you got home games against what? Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, that will all be in the top 15, preseason. Tough. I think it's a harder schedule than Alabama's personally.
Yeah, I agree. And so what I did with my rungs of SEC teams is that I have a bottom rung and a very bottom rung. And on the bottom rung, I have South Carolina and Arkansas here. And on the very bottom, I have Vandy and Mississippi State. And one of the things that's really tough about Arkansas' schedule here is that they only play one team on those 2 bottom rungs, which is at Mississippi State. So week in, week out, especially in conference, it's a battle, so this is tough, man. They're
still getting screwed.
It's going to be a tough road to hoe for sure.
Well, I mean, they don't really get, you want to get Vandy, you want to get, I guess they got Mississippi State, but you wanted to get South Carolina
for sure.
You want to get, right now I'd want to get Florida. Right now, I'd want to get Florida more than some of these other teams,
especially if it was at home versus Florida. I still think in the swamp is a tough place to win at Tennessee last year.
Yeah. The non-con, comparing that to Alabama's, at Oklahoma State, tougher than at Wisconsin, but still, it's kind of a wash, right?
Yeah.
No,
it's comparable.
Oklahoma State is better than Wisconsin. They were way better than they were last year.
And
but you're talking about the whole state.
I'm talking about the whole. I'm like, because South Florida's better than UAB, Pine Bluff, and Tech. A lot of Tech.
Yeah, South Florida's probably the second.
As is Western Kentucky.
Yeah, even though they kind of fell off last year, but
UAB, with Bill Clark was a pretty good team, but obviously not so much last year.
Yeah,
with Dilfer. But we'll see if they can rebound. But
I'd say they're comparable. But to Patty's point, Oklahoma State is a little bit tougher than Wisconsin. But not. Yes, but maybe it's a little bit tougher, but it's pretty comparable, I'd say.
Still not that impressive.
This is this is like pretty much a gauntlet. You have Pine Bluff, UAB, La Tech as like your for sure wins. Every other game is a tough game.
It's gonna be tough to go 6-6 here.
Yeah, even Mississippi State, you get them in Starkville. Like that's where you want them in Fayetteville to get an automatic SEC win.
Yeah.
Now you got to go to Starkville. The brutal fucking schedule, I thought, for Arkansas. Anything else you guys want to say on the Razorbacks?
I think it's gonna be another tough year for Paul Pittman here, and if he has another tough year, is he still there in 2025?
Well, what year will Bobby Petrino, or what game will Bobby Petrino become head coach? Because that would be very exciting if we got him. Well, shit, they play Auburn too early. I was hoping to get Strip Club Freeze versus Petrino, but Petrino against Sark got some.
Hey, you know what? They don't play Alabama. They don't play Bama or Georgia. If you want to look on the bright side,
that's what's hilarious. Is like you would think because you don't play Bama and Georgia, you're like, oh, this is a great schedule. No, you really have a gauntlet. That's just a brutal fucking schedule.
Well, here's the thing. That's a good point though, because sometimes teams take step forwards and steps backward. I didn't think Arkansas was due for that big of a step backwards with KJ Jefferson coming back, but they did, and maybe they have something up their sleeve that they take a step forward. And if there aren't those, super powerhouses in front of them, and they can win the close games against, some of the teams that we think are tough, then maybe that is a benefit to them. But
I just think it's too many. I would rather play two really good teams and lose than get a good team for 9 out of your 12 weeks,
especially if you're Arkansas. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, their goal is bowling probably.
Moving along, let's jump on over to the next one, which I thought this one, Hugh Strip Club Freeze, doing wonders. I thought this is a great schedule for progress in year 2 with the Auburn Tigers. I have this before the Saban news, I had this as the 13th ranked schedule. So the third easiest schedule. The non-con. In fact, how about they don't play an away game until week 6? Now, granted, that's at Georgia, but the week 1 home to Alabama A&M, not a good FCS. John Stallworth's been long gone from A&M. Then they're home to the California Golden Bears, then New Mexico, then they get a home game against Arkansas and a home game against Oklahoma. Like, starting off your first 5 games at home, phenomenal. They should be at least 4-1 or 5-0.
Yeah, I mean 4-0 seems very possible. 3-0 seems very likely. 4-0 seems very possible. 5-0 would be impressive because beating Oklahoma even at home is going to be tough. But 5-0 does seem possible.
Yes.
I really think. I mean, and we'll get there. I think in conference, I think the conference schedule is pretty tough, but they really did themselves favors out of conference. Like, look, I know they played at Cal last year, so they're getting the return trip at home this year. So that's their one, what we used to call P5, which is a term that we need to erase from our memory because it no longer exists. But they're out of conference is a cakewalk.
Yeah, I mean Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, ULM. ULM. I mean that's a horrible non-conference schedule. So
Cal solid. They squeaked into a bowl. I think they were 6-6, and I think they lost the bowl. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so 6-7.
Yeah. If that's your toughest out of conference opponent at home, that's a nice out of conference schedule.
So once again, home to Alabama A&M, home to Cal, home to New Mexico, home to Arkansas, home to Oklahoma. Woo. Then they hit the road and go to Athens, Georgia. The week after Georgia is playing Bama. That's noteworthy. Then they get a bye week. Then they head to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Missouri Tigers. Then back-to-back away. This is the first team with back-to-back away games thus far in the SEC as they head to Lexington, Kentucky. Then they're home to Vanderbilt. They get a bye week, home to ULM, home to Texas A&M, and then at Alabama. I think even within conference, I think it's still somewhat favorable. I know you had it really ranked tough, but to me, like, I don't look at Kentucky as some incredibly tough game. That's not a top 30 team to me.
It's a little bit tough of a game, but
especially on the second end of a back-to-back.
But wouldn't you rather have that than like if you had to get another SEC team, the only one you'd want over Kentucky would be what? Maybe Arkansas or Vandy, right?
I have Kentucky on the middle rung of SEC teams, which means there's 4 teams below them: South Carolina, Arkansas.
See, but
Vandy,
I think a game at South Carolina is harder to win than at Kentucky because of the crowd.
I don't know about that. So here's
It's just a better team, though.
Yeah,
a little bit.
My thought process on why Auburn has a tough in-conference schedule is that you could argue that they're on the road against the 3 best teams in the SEC last year. This past year, the year just ended, at Georgia, at Bama, at Missouri, and then to throw at Kentucky on the second end of a back-to-back road trip. It's a brutal road conference schedule.
Yeah. I will agree with that, but I'm just saying, to me, if I'm an Alabama or if I'm an Auburn fan and I have to, if you tell me, okay, you're playing at Missouri and we don't know who's week 9, one of my top 3 or 4 guesses would be in favor would be at Kentucky.
I'd say Auburn would be fortunate to go 1-3 on the road in conference. They're probably going to go 0-4.
1-3. They can win at Kentucky. Who the fuck is Kentucky?
You're the guy that did a deep dive on back-to-back road trips, especially the second.
True,
end of
but Kentucky lost their quarterback. Their coach was looking at. He told the team he was leaving for A&M. Then A&M changes their mind. I don't know about the culture now in Lexington.
Addition by subtraction isn't losing not Dennis Leary, Devin Leary a good thing.
True, but they brought in Brock Vandergrift, the Georgia transfer, and
who knows how that.
We haven't really seen him. So
well, he was competing for the starting job pretty deep into the competition there into the summer.
But what does that mean? Georgia just tried to get Jaden Mavia from UNLV, and then he flipped to USC. So are they happy with their quarterback situation?
I don't know. Let me ask you this: who's better, Georgia or Auburn, or Kentucky or Auburn rather?
I was about to say, I was like, Georgia or Auburn. Fly ball caught.
That's tough. I mean,
I think moving forward with Kentucky with Hugh Freeze, but I don't know about this year. This is the year that I think they're kind of on the same level.
They were both 6-6 to end the year this year, I believe, because Kentucky won the bowl and Auburn lost it. Is that accurate? Am I speaking out of my ass?
I don't even remember some of these bowl games.
Auburn lost to Maryland.
That's right. They got whooped.
Yeah, so
Kentucky lost to Clemson.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
Okay. So anyway, I think Kentucky's a little bit better than Auburn right now.
This non-con's a fucking joke, though. This non-con should be shit on.
That's what I wanted to say, and we've already said this before. But when your entire team is 4-0 in the non-conference because you play 3 cakewalk teams and 1 difficult or semi-difficult team, usually at home, then or at a neutral site in the South, then of course you come out of the non-conference slate with 15 top 25 teams, and then you just beat up on each other. But someone's got to come out of that. Someone's got to win those games, and so at the end you have like 2 or 3 teams that are like 1 or 2 losses, and you say, "Oh, they're the best teams in the country."
Well, it's kind of funny we're comparing Auburn to Kentucky because this schedule looks like a Kentucky schedule.
It does. It really does. It really does. That's anyone's game in Lexington. I mean, short. This the back-to-back away I do believe in though. So I'll make Kentucky a 1-point favorite.
I think it sets up for a Hugh Strip Club Freeze to at least go 6-6 again, but probably 7-5. I think go 4-0 out of conference. If you want to give them 1 road game, that would be 5, and then I think they could definitely win at least 2 at home. I mean, their home schedule is Arkansas, Oklahoma, Vandy, A&M, potentially 3.
Yeah,
you know, so I think maybe their ceiling is like an 8-4 team here. I'd probably lean more towards 7-5 though.
They should get Jaden DeLaura.
Yeah,
they should get Jaden DeLaura. He's out there right now. They couldn't throw the pass last year. They really struggled to throw the ball. Both schools in Alabama. Moving along,
I feel like their floor and their ceiling are really close. I think it's 7-5 or 8-4 for Auburn next year.
Let's talk about what I think might be the hardest schedule in all of college football next year. The Florida Gators.
What are they doing?
Billy Napier, he's going to be fired. Which week are you guys picking? Because this schedule, week 1, folks, they are home to the Miami Hurricanes and Mario Cristobal. Winnable because it's Cristobal. Week 2, they are home to Samford of the FCS. Week 3, they are home to Texas A&M. Then they head to Starkville, Mississippi in week 4. They get a bye week before hosting UCF week 6. Then at Tennessee, then home to Kentucky, who's had their number lately. Then their second bye week, and then the Murderers Row. As every team, their remaining 5 games is preseason top 15 teams. Neutral site against Georgia, at Texas, home to LSU, home to Ole Miss, at Florida State.
That's freaking absurd.
Woo! And look, how about them playing Florida State, Miami, and UCF? Shout out
Lovely.
to that athletic director.
Do they want to
schedule that?
Do they want to fire Napier? Is this like setting it up? I mean, is that why they schedule this tough? Like Florida's not known to schedule this tough.
Yes.
I mean, I love it. The fact that they're playing those 3 teams out of conference in the state of Florida. But what SEC team does this?
Yeah, Noah's like this. Noah's a Florida fan, and he says this is a joke.
Do you want Billy Napier to succeed? Obviously not.
Yeah.
And once again, they get much like Arkansas, where you're probably glad you get Mississippi State on the schedule. Not if it's in Starkville, in the Swamp. That's like pretty much an automatic win for Florida. I would feel like no at the Swamp. It's not that crazy. This won't happen, but it's not that crazy to think they could go 1-11.
It won't happen. It won't happen.
It won't happen. But I'm just saying, every other team with them having to play in Starkville, they don't get Vanderbilt on the schedule. Kentucky's had their number. If you had to rank let's throw out the FCS. What is the most winnable game for them? Because I don't know because at Starkville might not be the most winnable. The most winnable might be UCF
or Miami.
Or home against Kentucky.
I'd probably argue UCF might be better than Miami right now. I don't know, but yeah, one of those games. But Cash Juno in the chat's got a good point. I mean, can we get odds for first coach fired? Because Billy Napier would be a strong bet.
Yeah. That's a guarantee.
Noah says catching Mike Elko is ideal, but I wouldn't want to. I think that team is super talented. I think he's going to walk in and make them. Yeah. You'll hear me talk about Texas A&M in a little bit because I'm very high.
Noah's point, he's probably catching them early is a good thing because it's going to take a little bit of time. But I do think A&M has had a ton of talent last few years. They just needed a good coach. And I think Elko is a good coach.
Hot take here. A&M's going to the playoff next year.
Woo!
They're Louisville. Remember how I had Louisville, my future? You look at the way A&M schedule lines up. You look at the amount of talent that they have. We'll get to their schedule because I'm telling you, I think this is insane though by Florida. Shout out to Florida.
Their conference schedule is tough enough as it is, and then to throw three, I almost said power fives. I don't know P4s. Is that what we're calling them now? P4s,
power forwards. Yeah.
Look, to throw in three Charles Oakleys, it's tough.
And one Grant Long with Samford. All right. Unbelievable here, man. Patty C, what do you think of this schedule, man?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to lose their last 5 games. I mean, maybe the Swamp makes a difference in a game against like Ole Miss or something, especially if Lane Kiffin takes the Alabama job.
Fired. Napier will be fired by
he'll be long gone by then, probably. So they'll probably lose the last 5 games.
Dude, their last 5 games, 5 10-win teams.
Let me tell you this.
Insane.
Wait, every team went bowling except Mississippi State and Samford, right? And they get at Mississippi State. That's hilarious.
That Miami game to start the season, if that can get them some momentum, because you're right. Although Elko did go 9-4 in his first year at Duke, so I don't know if it's going to take him super long to get that going, like you guys were. But all 3 of those games are in the Swamp. If he can come out 3-0 at Mississippi State, maybe he's 4-0 going into that bye. A home game against UCF, it's not inconceivable for them to be 5-0.
And Weehawk says Samford scored 52 at the Swamp.
What's that?
A couple years ago.
I said, yeah, it is inconceivable to think they'd be 5-0. Have you watched Florida the last few years?
I watched them in their most recent game, and they gave Florida State a pretty good game.
Oh,
they're still a super talented team.
I mentioned the last 5 games having 5 10-win teams. It's 10+ win teams. That last 5 weeks is insane.
I'm not talking about their last 5. I'm talking about their first 5.
Well, they better get the W's in then.
Because it's possible.
And there's no way he's going there's no way they're going bowling. This will be 2 years in a row without them going bowling. 3 years in a row with losing records.
ADC says maybe they go 5-0 in the first 5. They'd be lucky to go 3-2.
They might go 7-0 and then 7-5.
Get out of here!
I don't think so.
Is Danny Werfel throwing the ball to Rydell Anthony?
Who's the hardest game in that first 7?
A&M
at Tennessee.
A&M.
They just whooped their ass this year.
A&M, dude.
A&M, fine.
Well,
they're not
but on the road at Tennessee is different than having Tennessee come to the Swamp.
A little bit.
No, it's a lot different.
Recently.
Nick, Noah asked, where would you set Florida's win total at preseason? He said, would you do 3.5?
Yeah, I think Florida's going to get a little bit more love than that. I think it's going to be at like 5, maybe 4.5.
They'll be favored. I don't think they'll be favored against Miami. I think they'll be favored against UCF. They'll be favored against Samford, obviously.
Maybe put it at 4.
They need Lane Kiffin to go to Alabama and Ole Miss. All of a sudden, everyone transfer out.
Florida just went 5-7 this past year, but this schedule is exponentially more difficult.
Yeah,
and I would say Florida might have got worse. All their whole team, ETN, their star running backs at Georgia.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that Florida got better this offseason thus far.
True story.
Anyway,
that's one of the hardest schedules in the country, right there.
That's one of the hardest schedules I've ever seen. remember Stanford that one year they played 12 Power Fives, and that was like, I thought, one of the hardest schedules because it was also like their non-con was like TCU and they're really good, Notre Dame and like BYU or something. All three teams that were bowl teams. You were just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
This is great in a way though. It's great for the sport in my opinion. But let's talk about their bitter rivals. Been to the world's biggest cocktail party. Great venue. Let's talk about those Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart. Week 1, they get Clemson in that filthy dome in Atlanta. Week 2, they get GBO Farms' Tennessee Tech's Golden Eagles. Week 3, they're at Kentucky. Week 4, they get a bye. Then they're at Alabama. Then they're home to Auburn. Sneaky spot there. Then home to Mississippi State. Then at Texas. Bye week after Texas. Then they have the world's biggest cocktail party in Jacksonville against Florida. Then they're at Ole Miss, home to Tennessee, home to UMass. Great. Made note of how many times UMass appeared on SEC schedules. Appreciate them doing that. And home to Georgia Tech in the rivalry game there.
The 17th team in the SEC.
Yes. Now Georgia, this is one where college football, this is where the realignment shit gets better because they would not normally have a schedule this tough.
For sure.
You got Clemson on there, which could win the ACC. You got road games to Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss.
How long has it even been since they've had a road trip to Bama? Did they
that's like one every 30 years?
Right.
Sorry, they're gonna really miss the SEC East. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But if you're a Georgia fan, you saw Saban step down. You're thinking, this is great. This is fucking great. This is what I'm saying. The schedule got a little easier for Georgia today.
It did. But I still say Georgia is one of the top teams that's going to contend for a berth in the 12-team college football playoff because now they can afford to potentially lose twice and still be fine. And with this schedule, you could argue there's 2 losses on there. Probably not any more than that, though.
They're gonna kick this schedule's ass. They're going to beat Clemson with all that time to prepare. They're a better team than Clemson in a neutral site. They're getting that one. They're 3-0. The bye week before Bama. Saban's not there. They'll probably win that. Even on the road, I don't know. That might be one of the losses.
They're going to go, worst case scenario, 10-2, right?
Yeah. Worst.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe they lose one game between at Bama and at Texas. And then the rest of the schedule, you know, the last starting in like November or late October, they have 3 home games, 1 neutral site game. They're not going to have any problem with Florida, and 1 trip to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is still not on that little Georgia tricky level, but it's tricky. So yeah, I'd say at worst case, Georgia's 10-2, and I think they're going to be fine for a playoff berth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it ranked 12th. Like I said, it got easier today too. So I'd have to,
but it's still a whole lot worse than last year.
No, a whole lot better.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Meaning more difficult, a whole lot more difficult than last year.
Yeah. All right, let's move along to the next one because Georgia's. I do like they catch Texas though. Great scheduling after the week after the Red River Shootout. So that is a great spot to catch Texas if they win the huge rivalry game. So the schedule does, and now with Saban gone, you're getting some breaks here. Are you Bulldogs? Let's talk about those Kentucky Wildcats and that great non-con that they always do. Kentucky is opening up the season against Southern Miss, who actually kind of gives them a hard time historically, I feel like. Then they are home to South Carolina, and then home to Georgia, and then home to Ohio. 4 games out the gate at home, and then they travel to Oxford, Mississippi to take on Lane Kiffin week 5. Then they get a bye week, and then they're home to Vanderbilt. Let's stop it right there. After week 7, they could be what? 5-2, 6-1.
I would say 5-2.
Yeah,
I'd say they lose to Georgia at home and at Ole Miss.
Then week 8, they're at Florida. Remember, they've had Florida's number lately. So week 7, home to Vanderbilt. Week 8 at Florida. Week 9, home to Auburn. Week 10 at Tennessee. Then they get a bye week. Then they get the Murray State Racers coming in. Then they head to Austin, Texas to take on the Longhorns. And then they end the season with the Governor's Cup against Jeff Brom in Lexington with the Louisville Cardinals. I still thought, the non-con, Southern Miss, Ohio, Murray State, who's a terrible FCS, and then Louisville. It's pretty fucking weak. Pretty weak.
It's an easy ass schedule.
Yeah. The away games though, at Ole Miss, at Florida, at Tennessee, at Texas, challenging.
Yeah, that's hard.
Challenging. You got to like your home schedule. Aside from Georgia, you got to love the idea, actually, the fact you're getting Louisville at home. No, other than Georgia, I'm saying like your home schedule: Southern Miss, South Carolina, Ohio, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Murray State, Louisville. You should be able to at worst 2 losses at home.
Well, their schedule hasn't changed that much. Their schedule hasn't changed that much. They still have 5 old SEC East teams, where in previous years it would be 6 SEC East, 2 SEC West. So now it's just 5 and 3. And you kind of trade, like this past year they played Alabama, kind of trade that with the Texas game. This schedule is still pretty similar to years past.
Yeah, I don't know why is he
closest as anybody else. No, I'd say this Kentucky schedule is pretty damn manageable.
I do too.
They screwed up by not putting A&M on this schedule because they floated Stoops' name out there for that job.
No, he told the team that he was taking the A&M job, so it's like. That should have been on the schedule. Make it happen, guys. But yeah, I'm with Nick. I thought it was an easy schedule for considering the new SEC 16 teams. I think if you're a Kentucky fan, you're saying this ain't that bad. Let's go.
Yeah. Actually, I miscounted. I think they have 6 teams from the old SEC East. Yeah, right. Tennessee,
South
Auburn,
Carolina,
Florida,
Georgia,
Vandy, Georgia, South Carolina. This is basically their same schedule every year.
Hey, let's give the SEC a little bit of credit, though. If we're saying your road schedule consists of Ole Miss, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas in a typical year, and then home games against Georgia and Auburn, that's a fucking hard-ass schedule.
True, but I still think
sucks right now. Yeah,
and I still think most SEC teams saw their schedule get a lot harder this year. Kentucky's not really one of them because this is basically still the same thing.
Agreed. Let's hop on over now and talk about the 7th team, the LSU Tigers. Holy shit, by the way. I love this non-con that they did. So LSU's schedule, if you're watching youtube.com/the college experience, Brian Kelly and his family are going to need it because week 1, they're in Las Vegas taking on USC. Week 2, they get Nichols. I know Patty C's excited about that. Oh, yeah. That's in Baton Rouge. Week 3, they head to Columbia, South Carolina to take on Shane Beamama. And week 4, home to Chip Kelly and UCLA. And week 5, the South Alabama Jaguars out of the Sun Belt, who knocked off Oklahoma State last year in Stillwater. They come to town. Then week 6, they get a bye. Then week 7, they are home to Ole Miss, trying to get some revenge after Ole Miss beat them down. Then back-to-back away games. One of the other, like I said, only 2 teams so far. This is the 2nd team now with back-to-back away games. At Arkansas, at Texas A&M, back-to-back. They get a bye week before hosting Alabama. Then they head to the Swamp week 12. Week 13, they are home to Vanderbilt. And week 14, they are home to Oklahoma. I thought this was a great, I think this is a very challenging schedule. The non-con, getting USC, UCLA, and South Alabama, who's a good Sun Belt team. That's a really good non-con. Nichols, okay, they have an FCS and Nichols, they suck. Okay.
At least none on the road, though.
Yeah, true. None in a true road game, but still, you gotta like that. I mean, as a fan of college football, if you're an LSU fan, you're probably like, oh, okay,
But I'd also argue that 2 things. They only play one of my top rung teams, which is versus Alabama. That's at home and maybe just got a little bit easier. And they play 3 of my bottom rung teams in South Carolina, Arkansas, and Vandy. So yes, their out of conference schedule's tougher than most SEC teams, but in conference, not too bad.
2nd toughest out of conference schedule in the SEC. Florida 1, LSU 2.
Yeah, agreed.
So I'll give them respect there, and I still think I think this is a tough schedule still. Like I think
overall, yes.
This is what I think. This is actually harder than their traditional schedule.
It's tough. What do you think the odds that this USC LSU game will be pivotal in the playoff hunt in some way, shape, or form? Pretty likely.
No.
I mean, LSU.
The LSU Alabama.
No,
LSU USC.
said.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I guess with USC going to the Big Ten, I don't know how they're going to fare there. But I figured, against the Pac-12 schedule, they'd be back in contention. Obviously, this year wasn't a good.
I think the Pac-12 is better than the Big Ten. So I think USC actually is going to have an easier schedule. But I just don't know where. To me, they're kind of reminding me of like Texas Tech. Like I think like Lincoln Riley's losing his edge a little bit.
And also, I mean, USC, not to get ahead and look at the Big Ten schedules now. It's still crazy to say USC in the Big Ten, but they play Michigan, they play Penn State, they play Washington, they play UCLA. It's not a cakewalk either.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But yeah, either way, I think this is a great schedule. Once again, they have a great like the road schedule. I thought was favorable for LSU this year. South Carolina, we figure will probably be 500 or a little less. Arkansas the same. Florida the same. So they're only one true good road team here in Texas A&M as far as a winning perspective goes.
And that's your projection still. I think you're probably right.
Well, and last year, and if you base it on last year.
Well, A&M wasn't very good the last couple of years.
Well, I'm saying they still won 8 games though, right?
Did they win 8 last year?
Was it 7, 8? They're the only team with a winning record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not that hard of a road slate.
Yeah.
Those are the only 4 road games in the entire year.
Yeah.
I guess the USC game in Vegas is kind of roadish.
Yeah.
But.
I think if they went a little bit easier out of conference and only had one P4, then I think we'd be saying it's a pretty good schedule, pretty easy schedule. But they did challenge themselves more than others. So overall, I'd say it's a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's actually one of the tougher in the SEC. It's just the road schedule. That's your argument. If you're going to attack that,
A&M finished 7-6 also. Did they win a bowl game?
No, because they didn't have anybody.
They lost to Oklahoma State. So they went 6-6.
What? What are you talking about? They went
A&M
7-5. 7-5. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. 7-5.
But still, I mean, they fired their coach. Before the season was done? All things considering, I think A&M's a much harder place. The other ones, yeah. Let's talk about Missouri to conclude part 1. Let's talk about the Missouri Tigers. Big year for them as Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers had a breakthrough season, and now he just got an extension. They have a great NIL collective that is taking players left and right. They got a top 10 recruit coming in this year. This schedule is a fucking joke in the non-con. You want to talk about the biggest fucking joke in the non-con? Murray State, a terrible FCS, week 1. Week 2, look at this schedule in general, but we'll talk about, okay, so week 1, Murray State. Week 2, Buffalo, who's been a bad team ever since Lance Leipold left. Week 3, Boston College. Those are all in Columbia, Missouri.
Hey, they went bowling last year.
Week 4, they are home to Vanderbilt. And then they get a bye week. They're going to be 4-0 and top 15 out the gates as they head to College Station and take on Mike Elko. Week 6, week 7, they have a away game at UMass.
That's hilarious.
There's 3 Northeastern teams.
Let me
Buffalo,
give you this.
Boston College, and UMass.
Why are they going to UMass?
Look at that non-con. This is the easiest schedule, I thought, because that non-con: Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and UMass. What? That's the easiest. That is the easiest fucking schedule I've seen as far as non-con go. Maybe in out of every P4, out of every power forward, that's the easiest fucking non-con. So anyway, after UMass. Tough back-to-back away, by the way. That's going to be one of those ones that really kills that stat. When you got at Texas A&M, then at UMass, which was, Texas A&M UMass. Remember, that was the JFK Bowl. Then home to Auburn, then at Alabama. They get a bye week before they're home to Oklahoma. Then they go at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, home to Arkansas. This schedule is genius. Why is it genius? Because Georgia's not on there. Why is it genius? Because Texas is not on there. Why is it genius? Because Oklahoma's got to come to Columbia, Missouri. This schedule's genius. They are going they can make the playoffs.
If you say A&M is going to make the playoffs, I'm going to say no. Missouri's going to make the playoffs.
Well, I think it might come down to that game, week 6. Week 6, it might come down to that game.
I mean, they get all 4 of the worst teams in the SEC with
and their
Arkansas,
non-con.
South Carolina, Vandy, Ole Miss. Mississippi State. So that's 8 wins right there.
Yeah.
And they only get one of the top rung in at Bama. So this schedule is absolutely genius. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 10-2.
Yeah.
Did you say Cook is coming back?
Yeah, I think he's only a sophomore, junior. Yeah.
Man.
I mean, hell, they went 11-2 this year.
Yeah.
Missouri.
And they don't have to play Georgia now.
Yeah. No playing. You know what? You should buy your future on Missouri to win the SEC next year because they can make the SEC championship game pretty easily.
I completely agree.
Even with the loss at Bama, you know.
Well, that got easier today because no Saban.
I still say they probably drop either at A&M or at Bama. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go 11-1.
But if they drop those two, they'll still be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably harder to get into the SEC championship than it is into the playoff at this point. So, but either way,
I think one of the things we're seeing here, and Colby hinted on this a few weeks ago when we were talking, but unbalanced conference schedules are really going to skew things. Yeah. You saw it this year some
with Louisville,
and
who was the
Oklahoma
other team?
State, was it?
Yeah, Oklahoma State was not the second best team in the Big 12. They just got to
right. So I mean, these unbalanced conference schedules are going to really make things interesting.
Missouri's going to get in. That game week 6 at A&M is going to be so fucking huge.
Yeah.
On that non-con though, what a fucking joke! What a crock of shit. How about the start to the season? Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt bye week. Whew. You're going into mid-October, just fucking sitting there saying, Yeah,
if you can beat A&M off of a bye, then you're guaranteed 6-0. You're guaranteed a 6-0
because UMass is after that.
And then you're hosting
and you should
Auburn.
still beat Auburn at home. You should be 7-0 going into at Bama.
Unbelievable.
Who does Bama have before Missouri? Bama has a road trip at Tennessee, so maybe that could be a loss, and they're all scrambled up in their heads. Missouri's got a good schedule.
They got a good schedule, folks. I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by Cut. Yes, Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S. based and legal in 40 different states. They have P2P social betting is a new and better way to bet people. Bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes and tons of social features that give it a feel of basically like a social betting network. Cut offers lower VIG too and fully customizable odds. Create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you'll never have to chase down old Steve who owes you some money. You haven't seen him. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to break out the lead pipe. All right. Social features equal group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and more. So what are you doing, folks? They got rewards. It's fantastic. Check out Cut. Head to cut.com. That's KUTT.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Look, Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long. They got NFL, NBA, NHL, college football, college basketball. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players' fantasy stats and cash in. So what are you doing, folks? Watch along, make picks, and maybe make a little extra cash on Underdog's mobile app or website, UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up with the promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Once again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code TCE SGPN. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching. Start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, we are here rocking. Let's do one more before we turn it over to the B-side. Let's hop on over to Ole Miss, big year for Lane Kiffin. I know Evan's already been talking about favorable schedule, perhaps. Look at the old logo, fire logo back in the day. Week 1, this schedule, super easy, I think you would say. I have it ranked the second easiest schedule. Home to Furman, home to Middle Tennessee, breaking in a brand new head coach, at Wake Forest, home to Georgia Southern, home to Kentucky. So should be 5-0. Then they do have back-to-back aways here at South Carolina and at LSU, but I think and getting LSU on the second end of back-to-back is tough.
Yeah.
Then they get a bye week, but then they're home to Oklahoma, at Arkansas, as I forgot to get that colored in, and then home to Georgia, bye week, and then at Florida, home to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. It is a favorable schedule though, because you don't get Texas, you don't get Alabama. The road spots are, I mean, I guess you have 5 away games. That's more than some teams, but Wake, South Carolina, LSU, Arkansas, Florida. Once again, if you're going by this year, only one team there had a winning record, and that's LSU.
Yeah. And they were, flawed. They couldn't play any defense. Didn't Ole Miss beat them last year? No, granted, that was at home.
In Oxford, yeah.
Oxford.
I mean, very similar to the Missouri out of conference schedule, except for it's at Wake, where Missouri gets Boston College at home. But at Wake, I mean, come on, is that really a tough place to play? No. They should definitely be 4-0 out of conference. Within the league, again, they have some of the easiest teams: Arkansas, South Carolina, Mississippi State. They have a nice base of 7 or 8 wins right off the bat, right before we even talk about like 50-50 games.
And you got to like the fact that you get, to me, your 3 hardest games on your entire schedule are at LSU, home to Oklahoma, home to Georgia. So my thing is, like, if you just win one of those and take care of business the rest of the games, you should be good.
Yeah. Again, especially Jackson Dart, another year in the program. I know they lost Quinshon Judkins, but like they'll plug in another running back. This is another team that you have to have in the same vein as Mizzou or A&M, where they have a legitimate chance at making the playoffs.
Very legit. I mean, Oklahoma off the bye. I don't know if Lane Kiffin will be able to scheme something up there that'll give them an advantage for the home game off the bye. But that's, like you said, you could probably afford
just
2
win
losses.
One of those. Yeah, just win one of those to LSU, Oklahoma, and Georgia. And the rest, you got to take care of business. Make sure you don't lose in the swamp or in Columbia. But yeah, they
like you said, should. Napier may be gone by the end of the season. That's the second to last game.
Yeah.
I still think like the one fascinating thing about this is like how good is Oklahoma, especially when you get Oklahoma at your stadium. Like at Oklahoma is going to be tough regardless.
Yeah.
But if you get Oklahoma at your own stadium, like where does that compare to like getting A&M at your home stadium, or where does that compare to getting Kentucky at your home stadium? I think Oklahoma's
they're better than Kentucky, but not as good as A&M, I don't think.
Right. So like you see Oklahoma and you automatically think, oh man, tough game. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the Big 12 hasn't been like dog shit. You know what I'm saying? Like Oklahoma has had to go on the road. They've typically done really well in the Big 12. So if they do come in and really struggle in SEC environments, then that's a pretty good indicator right off the bat that maybe the SEC is a much tougher road to hoe than the Big 12 is on a week-to-week basis. But I think Oklahoma will be fine. I think that's a tough game, but Oklahoma going to Ole Miss.
But I would also argue that Oklahoma is at a different level than they used to be. Like they haven't sniffed the Big 12 championship in 4 years now. So they're not at that same level.
I mean, they came close this year.
They lost. They were a flawed fucking team this year, dude. Like I understand they did. And they also had a game against Georgia canceled and replaced with Arkansas State.
Yeah, they're not as good as they were.
Yeah, to me, they've dropped down from obviously the Stoops era, but also from the Lincoln Riley era.
Well, that's why it's going to be interesting because maybe I'm undervaluing them. Maybe they're a little bit better than I think. But I just think, with them on the road against SEC teams, I'm very curious on how they're going to fare.
Yeah. Either way, a 10-2 Ole Miss team that starts out in the top 10, if not the top 5, they're going to the playoff. So all they have to do, you're right, is win one of those 3 games.
But we can't have. I mean, max the SEC gets us 4 teams, so it's not like we can have all these guys in the playoffs. There's Georgia, there's Bama, there's Missouri, there's Ole Miss, there's LSU.
A&M,
Maybe Colby thinks A&M. Not everybody's going to make it, even though there's going to be probably 4.
Yeah. Shout out to Travis Loveland in the chat. Says, I love this show. There we go. He's listening to it at work all the time. We appreciate you, Travis. All right, folks. So that concludes part A. Stay, if you're on YouTube, just stay put. We're just taking a quick break out of here on the audio side. So that concludes side A. We will get to the rest of the teams, the other 7 teams on the backside of the podcast, part 2. So this concludes side A of the college football experience. SEC conference schedule. All right, we are back on the college football experience. SEC conference schedule release and Nick Saban retiring episode. Part A, we'll have a 30-minute segment or so on Nick Saban and Alabama and where they're going to turn to and what this means for the SEC moving forward and for the University of Alabama. And we tackle the first 9 teams alphabetically. As far as schedule release, the SEC just released their schedule a couple weeks ago, and we haven't had a chance to break it down. Now we are breaking it down. We just ended with Ole Miss. Now we're jumping over to Hail State. Jeff Lebby takes over for Mississippi State. The non-con for Mississippi State is a home game against Eastern Kentucky. Week 2 heading to Tempe, Arizona to take on Arizona State. Then week 3, home to Toledo, lost the MAC to Miami, Ohio. 10 games though. They won 10 games. Then home to Florida and then at Texas. Then they get a bye week and then at Georgia, then home to A&M, home to Arkansas, home to UMass. UMass is on every fucking SEC schedule. Then at Tennessee, then they get a bye week and then home to Missouri and at Ole Miss on for the Egg Bowl there on Thanksgiving. The away games to me are brutal. I don't know about Arizona State. I think year 2 they will be a lot better, but at Texas, at Georgia, at Tennessee, at Ole Miss,
they ain't winning any of those.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some crazy shit happens in the Egg Bowl, but I doubt it.
I actually think they have one of the harder out of conference schedules too, because I think getting Toledo, now UMass, okay, but Arizona State and Toledo, and the Eastern Kentucky is a decent FCS too. So like, it's better than some of those non-cons that we were talking about.
It's 1P4, and that 1P4 is on the road in a game where I don't know who's gonna be favored. Probably Arizona State.
Arizona State was 3-9 last year,
but they were better.
3-point win over Southern Utah.
But remember, they were breaking in a brand new head coach. They were better at the end of the year than the beginning of the year.
If I remember correctly, Mississippi State beat Arizona at home in overtime, but that was kind of before Arizona really got cranking.
Yeah, that was when they had Delora. Yeah.
Dude, that's a great win for them last year.
Yeah,
I'm favoring Hail State, especially Jeff Lebby has that quick start offense,
Okay, so maybe they go 4-0 out of conference. How many?
Weehawk says, how much money is UMass getting for these SEC games?
They're funding their entire state.
Now, if they go 4-0 in the non-con, I don't know. I actually favor Arizona State to win that game. I think Jaden Rashada year 2 and the fact that they can use the portal again strengthen that. I favor ASU not by much though. This is to me, I would say Arizona State -2.5, 3. But it's certainly winnable for Mississippi State if they can get Eastern Kentucky, Arizona State, Toledo, and then UMass 4-0. And then can they find 2? The problem is they got fucked on the conference schedule.
Oh, big time.
Here's the thing too. Between the road trip to Arizona State and Toledo, I bet they drop 1.
Yeah.
They're probably 3-1.
And then look at that conference schedule. Maybe you get Florida, maybe you get Arkansas and Starkville, but man, at Texas, at Georgia, getting home to A&M the week after Georgia, and then at Tennessee, and then you get Mizzou and Ole Miss back-to-back weeks, and you get Ole Miss on a short week.
Yeah, so this was my second hardest in-conference schedule. It's absolutely brutal. The one easier team, bottom rung team for me was Arkansas. But that's certainly not a for sure win at home versus Arkansas. that might be the only game. I mean, I say, okay, at home, maybe they split the Florida and Arkansas games. Other than that, I don't see them winning any other conference games.
They have to be perfect in the non-con and beat Florida and Arkansas to go bowling.
Yeah, I see them getting one of those. I don't see them winning at Texas or at Georgia or at Tennessee or at Ole Miss. They're not going to beat Missouri at home. They're probably not going to beat A&M at home. This is a brutal schedule.
What did Missouri do 2 years ago? I need to look that up.
I think they were 6-6.
Yeah, 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Yeah. Is there any chance that like Missouri just had a miracle? I mean, they looked really good. In fact, they probably should have
because
beaten
that
LSU.
NIL. This is why I would go back to that Tennessee thing with you, man. They're able to keep these players now. They would have never gotten Luthen Burden before. You know what I mean? Like getting him they got a top 10 recruit coming in this year.
What is their NIL deal? They
can start
high schoolers
while
now?
they're in high school. Yeah,
Drinkwitz has been recruiting well. I mean, he's bringing talent in there, and a lot of people come back. I think Cody Schrader, the running back,
he's made great hires too on his staff.
Let me tell you this: the state of Missouri proved that they answered the question as to whether they're a Big Ten culture or an SEC culture by paying their high school players NIL money.
Look, before this year started, we were saying Drinkwitz was squarely on the hot seat.
He just got extended. Yeah.
Well, this year, rightfully so. I said before this year, there was a lot to be left to be determined or desired. But this year, he proved it, and it seems like that trajectory is definitely going in the right direction.
Definitely, and I don't know, Mississippi State. I don't know. This is one where I'm just like, good luck. This is where it gets exciting, though. We have a new team entering the SEC, and that is the Oklahoma Sooners. Boomer Sooner. Here I will play our music again. We have our own Oklahoma theme song. He's a Sooner, and he plays at linebacker. Now. This one's hilarious. Like I thought they got some nice breaks because they don't non-con. Pretty hilarious to me because home to Temple week 1, then home to Houston week 2, then home to Tulane week 3. Now maybe those are 3 basically group of 5s. Houston's been a P5 for 1 year. Now Tulane and Houston are decent. Now obviously. Breaking in brand new Willie Fritz left Tulane for Houston. We'll see how that does in year 1, but you gotta if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're saying, hey, we should be 3-0 going into week 4 where you host the Tennessee Volunteers in Norman. Then week 5, you head your first SEC road game on the Plains at Auburn, very winnable. And then you get a bye week. So you could be going into the Red River Shootout 5-0 if you take care of business at home and beat a Auburn team that I think you're better than.
It should be noted Texas has a bye week going into that game as well.
True.
Now, you had mentioned Oklahoma, a guy that I haven't had as much familiarity with. They have a good quarterback that was waiting in the wings.
Jackson Arnold,
Arnold. Okay, so depending on how good he is, then it could be a great start.
I think that the scary thing is their whole offensive line either graduated or transferred. I don't know what the fuck happened, but
yeah. I don't think they beat Tennessee and Auburn. I think they dropped one of those.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Then you got the Red River Shootout. Now, unlike Texas, who has Georgia the week after the Red River Shootout, at least they get South Carolina. And I fucked up on that graphic there. That's actually in Norman. That is not in Columbia. And then they head to Ole Miss week 9. Then they're home versus the Maine Black Bears. Week 10, and then at Missouri. Then they get
fitting right into the SEC scheduling process right away.
Yeah,
Maine.
Yeah. As far northeast as we
Maine going to Oklahoma? Ridiculous.
Yeah. Now week 13 and 14, the final 2 weeks of the season. Oklahoma home to Alabama, and then at LSU. So imagine if they were to somehow make the playoff, they would play 3 straight weeks of home to Alabama, at LSU. Maybe even SEC championship, or you're in the playoff the next week. That's a gauntlet there. I don't expect them to be there, but I still thought they caught some breaks on this schedule, though. Mainly the non-con is shit. Home to Temple, home to Houston, home to Tulane, home to Maine. You're getting 2 brand new head coaches at their destinations, a bad FCS last year in Maine, and a shitty team in Temple, who just lost EJ Warner to Rice. So the non-con to me is butter soft.
And that's a good thing because the conference schedule is really tough.
Yeah, I was about to say the conference schedule has its challenges.
It's actually ranked my toughest.
Really?
If I was assigning a number to each rung, well, a couple things. First off, they only have 3 home conference games
because the Red River Shootout.
Yeah, exactly, and that's
tough.
big, man. Yeah. And then to play 2 of the top teams in Texas and Bama, followed by at LSU, at Mizzou, at Ole Miss, and then Tennessee and at Auburn. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal.
They get Texas. They get Texas off a bye. They get Alabama off a bye, both at home. If they can come away with the win on that, I mean, yes, going to Ole Miss, but still, what are their big stretches that are really tough? Tennessee, then at Auburn.
I would say Alabama and LSU
yes,
back
of
to
course,
back.
that's ridiculous.
To your point, other than the last 2 games, they do have it spaced out well.
Yeah.
I could see them 9-1 coming into that. They probably won't be. They'll probably be
9-1. There's no way in hell 9-1.
Well, okay, I have them 5-0 going into the bye week against Texas. Right?
I don't. I don't.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys just got through saying. Fucking Auburn is not that good. Right?
At
True,
Auburn,
but
Auburn's
Oklahoma's not that good.
At Auburn's always tough. Auburn always beat Georgia and Alabama this year at Auburn.
Okay. All right. Maybe that's a little tougher. I think you guys are rating Tennessee and Auburn tougher than I am for those games. I think Oklahoma is way better than you guys think they are. Okay. I'll just say that's apparent. I think they're probably 5-1 coming out of that Texas game and 6-1 coming out of South Carolina. Whether they lose Tennessee, Auburn, or Texas, I bet they get 2 out of 3 of those. I don't know.
I don't think you're factoring in the fact that they had a super experienced quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. He's gone. Their offensive line transferred out. Their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator.
Maybe Levy leaving.
Both coordinators. They lost their DC too. So I don't know that I would just all of a sudden say
Venables is going to have that defense ready.
Honestly, I have them 6-4 after their second bye.
6-4. After their second bye,
I have them losing to Texas. I have them losing at Ole Miss, at Mizzou, and either Tennessee or Auburn. So that's
the game I wasn't looking closely enough at.
I have them 6-4 with Bama and LSU to close things out.
I got them 7-3 there, but yeah, that's still, you're right. That's actually
a tough gauntlet, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not as bullish on them. I mean, look, if Arnold pays off and he's way better than Gabriel. But I still think, to me, the concerns were I thought they were going to bring back some of the guys on the O-line. Losing those key pieces, and then also, like I said, losing just continuity, offensive defense coordinator. Luckily, they get 4 weeks at home to start the season, but
I think Colby said, watch out, Oklahoma. You might be the next Arkansas.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that is they aren't there yet. And what is Oklahoma from a talent standpoint? They're essentially Texas, right? They get all the top talent from Oklahoma, and they get the secondary talent from Texas, if not the first tier of talent, just because they've been above Texas for as long as they have. They have whooped Texas's ass over the last 20 years, by and large. I mean, I guess probably 60-40, but they are the better program than Texas over the last 20 years. And I think from a talent perspective, they're right there with Texas. And if you compare Texas against this schedule based on last year, you would say, oh, they're going to do fine against Auburn and Tennessee. But for some reason, we're sleeping on Oklahoma just because Brent Venables struggled 2 years ago.
I'm just not sold on him as a great head coach yet. Good bounce back year, but I still thought, they were in a lot of games with. If you're talking talent, the teams that had no business being as talent, in the games with them according to talent. He needs to prove it to me a little more. A great first step, I would say, after a tough first year, but. I also thought they got a favorable schedule there in the Big 12. Moving to the next team, let's jump on over to The Gamecocks. Patty C, is your boy Beamer he's gonna make it? Because I thought this schedule was pretty fucking challenging. They open up the season in Columbia, taking on the Monarchs of Old Dominion. Then they head to Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, to take on Stoops and the Wildcats. Then they're home to LSU, followed by home to Tennessee. Then they get the Akron Zips coming into town. But I fully expect them to be 2-3, maybe 3-2. But then they get a bye week. And then home to Ole Miss, then at Alabama. This is the hardest 2-game stretch. Look at that 3-game stretch right there. Look at that. Home to Ole Miss, at Alabama, at Oklahoma.
Again, all 10+ win teams from a year ago.
Yeah. Then you get a bye week. Then you're home to Texas A&M. Then you do get Vanderbilt on the schedule at Vandy. Home to Mizzou, at Clemson. How many bowl teams are on the schedule? Like Akron and who? Vanderbilt are the only 2 teams that didn't go bowling.
Or look like how many teams have made the playoffs in the last few years on that schedule.
Wait, did you get the Wofford game on there, or did we miss that one?
Did I fuck that up? Where's the Wofford game?
Wofford's between Missouri and Clemson. Oh, you missed it.
Wait, Missouri and Clemson. Oh, wait. Whoa.
Second to last. They did the standard SEC.
So they don't play Mizzou. They don't play Mizzou then.
No, they do. Mizzou is the week before Wofford.
How did I fuck this up? So they don't get Vandy on week 12.
They have Vandy before Mizzou, so that's fine.
Where's the fuck up here?
Then a bye. Then Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, bye, and then Akron.
I don't know. Whatever.
LSU, Kentucky, Old Dominion.
Tennessee's the one. Week 4.
They don't play Tennessee. They don't play Tennessee.
Okay. My bad. Was doing this all the way up until we hit record. So
either way, just teams that made the playoffs in recent years, like Clemson, like Alabama, like Oklahoma, like LSU, it's a tough schedule.
Yeah.
I mean,
and especially with 3 of those 4,
year, right?
3 of those 4 on the road.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. A strong start often adds a lot of momentum to a season, right? I know that the road trip to Kentucky is a pretty tough game based on the, talent comparison there. Still, Beamer, that's the kind of game he would.
But they lose Rattler, right? Rattler's going pro, right?
You would think. Gosh, he's so far down on the list based on where he was just a couple years ago.
Going pro. Is he going to be in the UFL? He's going to be a backup quarterback for Birmingham.
I mean, I guess you can't realistically say they're going to go to Kentucky and win and then also beat LSU. I could see them winning one of those 2 just based on Beamer getting up for some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to be dogs in both, but yeah.
I could see them coming out of it 3-1 out of their first.
I could also see them losing to Old Dominion.
I could see that too. Old Dominion was playing pretty well last year.
I'm going to say 2-2. I'm sorry. I think
that's most likely.
The more 50-50 game is on the road at Kentucky. So I got to lean Kentucky there. And then LSU, beats them in Columbia. So I'm going to say 2-2.
Either way, they come out of the bye and get slapped for 3 straight weeks.
Probably.
They might be able to sneak up on Ole Miss though, right?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And then, the back 5 games, you're going to win 2, maybe 3, but probably not.
I feel like Beamer is really unpredictable in terms of when he's going to show up and when he isn't. I want to look back at
but dude, that was back in the SEC East. I feel like them getting this schedule's a lot harder. They still have Clemson in the non-con, and you're basically you have LSU now on the schedule, Oklahoma and Alabama that aren't traditionally on your schedule.
Yeah, they weren't that good last year. They're probably
Ole Miss. They don't normally get Ole Miss. Yeah,
they went 5-7, and what have they done to improve their roster? I probably see another 5-7 year loading.
Maybe even worse because I think the schedule's harder.
Might be right.
Yeah,
but let's see. ODU will give him that. Akron will give him that. Wofford will give him that. Vandy will give him that. That's 4. No, that's 5. No, that's 4.
No, that's 4.
And then
so they would need to get 2. I could see them upsetting Ole Miss or Mizzou or something, but I just don't know that I could see them doing much more than that.
Right.
Yeah,
I think 6-6 would be a stretch here.
Yeah. Let's move over and talk about those Tennessee Vols. But before we do that, I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience SEC schedule release episode and Nick Saban retirement episode is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Look, DraftKings Sportsbook is an official betting partner of the National Football League, and the NFL playoffs are here. Look, DraftKings is bringing you an offer that will make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. What are you doing, folks? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code SGP. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bet expire 168 hours after they are issued. See DKNG.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be that stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater that is near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll be having at that very event. So what are you doing, folks? Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Perfect for the NFL playoffs and college basketball. Download the Game Time app, create that account, redeeming code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, terms apply. CFBX redeeming code $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, next we jump on over to the Tennessee Volunteers. Where's GBO Farms? They need to go back to that old logo, fucking fire ass logo that they had in the early 90s.
Sweet. And Alan Cooley. Don't forget about Mr. Cooley.
That's true.
Okay.
Shout out to Alan Cooley too, man. How am I going to forget
right there?
Alan Cooley hooked me up with a nice gift. Nice gift for my son. So he's the fucking man.
A fucking American.
Now this schedule, the non-con. Chattanooga, the Mocs, week 1. Week 2, they get NC State in Charlotte, neutral site game. Then they get a horrible Kent State team in the MAC in Knoxville, week 3. Week 4, they head to Norman to take on Oklahoma. Week 5, they get a bye. Then they head to Fayetteville, Arkansas, week 6. Then they're home to take on the Florida Gators, week 7. Followed by a home game against Alabama. Sorry, I have that miscolored in. And then they get a bye week, and then they are home to Kentucky and Mississippi State before heading to Athens, Georgia, and ending the season with some nice UTEP Vanderbilt action. Final 2 weeks of the season. I thought it was a pretty favorable schedule.
Yeah, that's a great schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, usually when you see Bama and Georgia on your schedule, both, you don't say it's a great schedule. But all things considered, I tend to agree.
Well, now that Bama got a little easier.
Yeah.
Like, I think they can go 4-0 in the non-con because NC State's always trash. And
isn't it crazy, though? You see Bama, Georgia, and Oklahoma on your schedule, and you're saying it's pretty easy.
It's true. It's actually,
I mean, historically speaking.
So look, let me ask you.
Let alone Florida. A team has won 2 national championships in the last 20 years.
All right.
Is this easier than an SEC East schedule? Is the question. You still got Vandy. You still got Kentucky. You add in Mississippi State and Florida and Arkansas.
Well, the good thing is you add in Arkansas and Mississippi State. So you're getting two of the two worst teams from
that's
the
what I'm
old
saying.
SEC
And you're
West.
not getting Missouri.
Right.
So you're getting rid of Missouri for Mississippi State or Arkansas, which I think is a win. Yes, at Oklahoma is challenging. I think it's a tiny bit harder, maybe. Tiny bit.
Overall, I think it's fairly manageable. I think there's a solid base of 5 pretty easy wins. When you look at Vandy, UTEP, Mississippi State, Kent State, and Chattanooga. And there's other 50-50 games like the NC State game. You know, I mean,
traditionally
the SEC beats the ACC in those games, right?
Yeah, and I think Tennessee is just ahead of NC State right now.
You're probably right. But I mean, that this will be that new quarterback's first real game because Chattanooga doesn't count.
Dude, but by the SEC standards that we've been going through here with every other team, this is a relative cakewalk. Like you said, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia, all very super tough games. 2 of them on the road, Oklahoma and Georgia on the road, Alabama at home.
And all the rest are very winnable. Yeah.
All the rest are very winnable.
To
and
me,
if you win one of those, you're going to the playoff. Probably.
To me, if you told me, who do you want, if I'm an SEC fan, who do you want in your schedule? I would say, oh, please give me Vanderbilt. Please give me Arkansas. Please give me Mississippi State. I would even say give me this year Florida, and I would also say I would like Kentucky because I think they're always flawed.
The team you forgot was South Carolina, which isn't on their schedule, but still, you have a lot of those of the easier half of the SEC for sure. So the schedule is on the easier half, and it's not like they killed themselves out of conference either. There's no road game out of conference, and the only P4 is against an NC State squad who's decent, but Tennessee's going to be favored.
Yeah, and
Tennessee favored by what?
7?
Not. You think a touchdown? Think a full touchdown?
7.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
What do you think Tennessee goes against this schedule? 9-3?
Well, the Bama game just came a lot more winnable in my opinion.
I figured they win one of those 3 that they probably would be dogs in, and they lose one of the other games that in typical Tennessee fashion.
Maybe they get 2 losses, 3 losses.
Yeah, I think 9-3.
That's playoff good, I think.
I don't think 9-3 is. I think 10-2 might be.
No, yeah, I think other teams are gonna. I think 2 losses regular season, you're definitely within the mix. I think 3 losses now.
You know what makes for a huge game is the Oklahoma game, because if they lose that game, I think they'll then lose to Georgia, and then the odds are they'll probably get one more upset somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but don't sleep on at Arkansas. Like, how many times has Tennessee played at Arkansas?
Yeah,
I feel like that's like a sneaky game.
Arkansas is still like a top 30 recruiting team. It's not like they're trash. Like, if they put it together for a game, they can, go man for man with Tennessee.
Yeah. Let's hop on over and talk about the team that everyone hates. The Texas Longhorns. All right. This schedule here, Texas Longhorns, hook 'em horns. First year in the SEC. This is how the schedule breaks out. Week 1, and shout out to them being the only SEC team without an FCS opponent. That I will say, credit to you there, Texas. Week 1, they are getting the Colorado State Rams and Jay Norvell. Week 2, they head to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Will Jim Harbaugh be the head coach there?
Fun game.
That is. Week 3, UTSA. That Frank Harris is gone, but hey, maybe they got some new hotshot Owen McCown ready to
Eddie Lee Marburger.
Yeah, Eddie Lee Marburger. There we go.
That guy's gonna assassinate a president one day.
Week 4, we get ULM, and then week 5. I mean, if they beat Michigan, they'll be 5-0.
It's a big if.
Yeah.
Big if.
Mississippi State week 5. They get a bye week 6, and then this is where the 2-game stretch here, the Red River Shootout, followed by a home game. And I love how I have Tuscaloosa on there. Followed by the Georgia Bulldogs. That's in Austin. You got to remember, I was rushing to get this thing done before. Yeah,
I'm just gonna say you're gonna anger a lot of people there, but
That's
right.
Yeah, we get it.
Either way, it's in Austin, Texas. Georgia and Oklahoma back-to-back weeks. Then they head to Vandy. Then bye week. Then they're home to Florida. Then at Arkansas, and then, which I like that game back on the schedule. And then home to Kentucky and at Texas A&M. Here's what I was thinking, guys. If they lose, I figured they're going to lose 3 games. Michigan, either Oklahoma or Georgia, and A&M.
And then that would probably have them out.
Why do you have them losing A&M?
Because A&M is more talented and Mike Elko's there.
Yeah, more talented.
What do you mean? They had the number 1 recruiting class 2 years ago, and all those guys are there.
We come on. Now you're going to use recruiting classes to tell us about talent.
Well, that's how we judge Texas. Texas never has a better recruiting class than A&M.
I mean, we looked at the 24/7 composite on who actually is the more talented team? Are we just talking out of our ass here? I would assume that Texas is the more talented team.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll take Mike Elko every single time ever against Steve Sarkisian, especially in College Station.
You're not lying. Texas A&M is number 4 on the 2023 talent composite. Texas is number 6. I would say that's a negligible talent advantage that A&M has. And I would say quarterback play strongly favors Texas.
Not against Mike Elko.
Here's the interesting thing. Like, if you look at their in-conference schedule, I think the SEC, gave Texas like an open mouth kiss welcome to the league. They play Vandy, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Florida. The only bad team they don't play is South Carolina. So right off the bat, not too bad. But then to throw in the at Michigan game out of conference, that's what makes their overall schedule tough.
Well, and the at A&M game, dude. I'm telling you, A&M fans have wanted that game forever.
That pisses me off so bad that all the other newcomers to the SEC got the shaft for years on end from a scheduling standpoint, and Texas waltzes in there and just gets, a
royal
freaking
treatment.
Yeah.
But still, so they basically have a 4-game schedule: Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, A&M.
Arkansas has had their number lately.
I just said at Arkansas can be tricky. So
they've had their number lately, but yes, I would agree that the other games aren't very.
If they can handle those 8, then you have a 4-game schedule. If they split, they're a contender for the playoffs. If they do better, they're in. If they do worse, they're out. There you go.
10-2 or 9-3. That's Texas to me. Is that what you guys are looking at there?
I'm thinking 9-3. It depends on Harbaugh. If Harbaugh leaves, then that Michigan game becomes much more winnable.
Sure.
Yeah.
And McCarthy.
Texas did just win in Tuscaloosa this year, so they can go on the road. It's not like it's going to be bad weather.
But I do have A&M beating Texas.
Wait, Tuscaloosa? Oh, yeah. Yes, they can go into a difficult environment.
I have Texas beating Oklahoma this year. So
yes, me too. But
then you got Georgia and Austin and at Michigan.
Dude, Georgia, it's where they catch them though. That's so great. The week after that crazy fucking roller coaster, they normally get a bye week after that game.
Yeah,
or that's what's gonna get them. 9-3.
Here's the thing: I don't see Texas losing to any of these other 8 teams. That I don't see it at all.
Arkansas maybe.
I don't really see them losing to Arkansas. No, I don't. I think they've established themselves as a pretty damn good team. Texas has, and Arkansas has a long way to go. I think they're even on a bad day in Arkansas. I think Texas wins that game. There are 4 losable games. I'm a little less bullish on A&M, even though it's probably going to be a better game than I realized or have thought it would be. So I think 4 losses is the absolute floor for Texas, but I think it's between 9-3 and 10-2.
You know what that Texas A&M game is? Next year, it's the Kentucky-Louisville game this year, where Colby told us that Louisville was going to beat Kentucky.
But the only difference is
they didn't.
It's Kentucky's talent composite.
They should have.
Kentucky's talent composite. Yeah, they should have too. Kentucky's talent composite is better than Louisville's, whereas A&M's is better than Texas's. And just to me, come on. I feel much better about Texas's chances at Michigan than I do at A&M.
How can you say that?
Because I think
really you do.
I do. I think Mike Elko
A&M is little brother. They have
What?
shown it a million times.
Look,
Really?
I love the projection
Haven't played
for
in 20 years.
I love the projection for A&M, but how can you say that game's tougher than at Michigan right now?
Because I would be Jim Harbaugh is going to be suspended that game. B, I just think that to me, A&M's been waiting for this.
They probably have.
I mean, I agree. It's a very tough game, and I could definitely see Texas losing, but it's kind of hard to say it's tougher than the team that won the national championship.
Even if Harbaugh comes back, even if Harbaugh comes back, he's not there for that game. That doesn't matter.
They beat Ohio State this year. It didn't matter.
Sharon Moore.
True,
what are you trying to
Not
say?
by much. Not by much. Yeah.
It could be a close game. I mean, Michigan just didn't beat Washington by much. I guess the final score, but still, either way, it's kind of tough to make that argument considering Michigan just won the national championship and they bring back a lot. Probably.
You ready for the other side of the argument? Is Elko by week 14 He's not a first-year coach at that point.
Wait. Okay. Say Harbaugh is back. Then what's harder? At Michigan in week 3 or at week two, yeah. Or at A&M in week 13 or 14?
I think at A&M's harder.
You're out of your mind. Really? Look, Elko by week 14 of year 1 doesn't have it as dialed in as Harbaugh does.
He walks into a more talented team and he's a better head coach than Steve Sarkisian. So he's at home. You got to like that. To me,
I'll play the middle here. Look, I'm a middle kid, so I'm the get along guy,
the peacemaker.
The peacemaker. Now I agree. Like I saw what Elko did in year 1 at Duke, which was fucking phenomenal. With nowhere near the talent he's gonna have at A&M. He turned Duke's defense, which was god awful the year before he got there, the couple years before he got there, and he turned them into a really good defense. Year 1. With basically the same roster somehow. He still did a magic trick to how that defense was playing. So I do expect A&M to be a lot better. But come on, you still can't say come on. At Michigan, the Big House?
Big House is bullshit. They didn't play anybody in the non-con. All right? The fuck out of here with this shit. All right? They barely got by Ohio. They play the Big Ten sucks. All right? They beat up a shitty conference.
I see Noah in the chat. Noah, if you were the producer here, you could chime in here and talk shit against Colby, because stand up for your boys that just won the national championship.
Noah he should be quiet when he says that, because he didn't want to play Texas. He wanted to play Washington. Why'd you not want to play Texas?
Did you guys see the stat that I posted on Twitter?
What's that?
Texas or Michigan didn't play a single team that finished in the top 45 in both offense and defense. The entire season. They didn't play one single team that had both a good offense and a good defense.
It's not their fault Florida State wasn't in the playoffs.
It's true. It's true. It's okay. Enjoy that co-national championship. Let's talk about Mike Elko in year 1, because this is the team that I think they're going to be in the playoff next year. The non-con, week 1. He gets Notre Dame in College Station against his former quarterback, Riley Leonard. What better situation to know the weaknesses of your fucking quarterback from the past 2 seasons? Then after that, they're home to McNeese, then at Florida, then home to Bowling Green. Then they get Arkansas and Jerry's World. After that, they're home to Missouri, which I think is the biggest game of the year for Texas A&M. Then they are home to, then they have a bye week. Then they're at Mississippi State, home to LSU, at South Carolina, another bye week. Then they get New Mexico State, at Auburn, and home to Texas. This team's in the playoffs. Put them in there right now. Put them in there right now. That schedule's incredible. Look at those away games. At Florida, they suck. At Mississippi State, they suck. At South Carolina, they suck. At Auburn, they're struggling.
Dude, they are cakewalking their way to the. If they can get by Notre Dame, it's a lock.
Yes.
We still need to see who they are. Okay. A&M has underachieved for the past couple years, granted with a totally different head coach, but still, can we see them play a few games first?
Yeah, we probably should. Dude, it is a new coach. What do
you mean? He had no one at Duke. There were starting players you never even fucking heard of. Now he walks in. Connor Wegmans is back. Dude, they're going to be nasty. Here's another thing. Elko's defense when he left. Look how bad A&M's defense was after he left.
Oh yeah.
This is cakewalk. This is a cakewalk.
The other thing, only 3.
They're going to the playoff. This team. What did Jim Fossil say? This team's going to the playoffs. All right.
Only 3 true home games in conference because of that bullshit Arkansas game.
That's a home game. In Jerry's World,
they're going to win it, I think. I mean, really, if you're looking on it, can they look in the first 5 games? They have Notre Dame, Florida, and Missouri. What's their schedule in those first 5 games?
5?
What's the record?
5-0. I'm sorry.
I think they're 5-0. Yeah.
I don't know. Notre Dame is a coin flip. They get them at home.
That's 6 games, Nick. That's 6 games. But yeah, it's not a coin flip. No, they're gonna fuck
Notre Dame
up
was
Notre
pretty
Dame.
fucking good last
I'm not
year.
including McNeese. No. Okay, I'm not including McNeese. That's the win or Bowling Green. So basically, it comes down to can they beat Notre Dame, Florida, and Missouri? I have them dropping one of those.
I have no idea how you're so confident that A&M is going to beat Notre Dame. None. Where are you coming up with that?
Notre Dame's not a good team.
Notre Dame should have beaten Ohio State.
But they
by
didn't,
all
Pat,
rights
and
should have beaten Ohio
haven't
State,
beaten
and they should have been
anybody
fucking
like
11-2
for
because they were
20 fucking
10-3
years.
this year, and they
You're
whooped
living
the
off some
dog
Jerome
shit out
Bettis
of
bullshit.
State.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I think they'll be 4.5.
I saw somebody
threw
out Marcus Freeman for the head coaching job at Alabama, and I was like, what? Why?
You can recruit, but yeah, it's a little early for that.
He can also lose to Stanford.
But that same person threw out James Franklin. I was like, what? Why?
No, to me, the big game. It's not the Notre Dame game. It's the Missouri game.
Sure.
I think the Missouri game is the one to circle. They're winning at Florida. I think they win by double digits at Florida.
I agree with that.
You're probably right. I'm saying it's game 3. Is Wegman the quarterback?
At the Swamp.
Is Wegman the quarterback?
Started the past 2 years. Yeah, he's
solid.
Dude, their team is nasty.
It's a nice
Their
schedule.
roster is nasty. You guys are so fucking.
Well, I can understand
naive.
now.
You're so naive on the roster. Yeah.
You're so high on them against Texas at home because if they're coming into that game 10-1, the hype level in fucking College Station is going to be through the fucking roof, and they probably have a better chance than they would if they were like a 9-3 team.
And this has to be the easiest road schedule in conference. But
yes.
still, do they go 4-0 on the road? Do they win at Florida and at Auburn?
Yeah.
Those are tough places to play, man.
Dude, they get Auburn the week before the fucking Iron Bowl.
And also the week before Texas.
Spot.
Texas A&M.
Yeah, but it's a great
big
spot.
game too. That's a look ahead spot.
But they're in College Station. It's a little different.
No, well, Texas is at Auburn for that game.
I know that, but I'm saying the Texas game is at home, so it's a
still a look ahead spot. Yeah. If Auburn's sitting there at like 6-5,
I would be shocked if Texas A&M is not in the playoffs. I'll put it like that.
Shocked?
Bold.
I like your prediction.
This is not like Brom. Brom didn't have the talent. A&M has the talent. That schedule's easy as fuck. And they already have the talent. It's just been sitting there waiting for a good coach.
So what's their hardest road game?
Yeah, it's Auburn. It's Auburn week 13.
Look,
they're probably going to the playoffs.
I think they're in the mix for the playoffs for sure. But tell me how many teams from the SEC make the playoffs, and tell me those teams.
A&M's playing.
Is it 4?
A&M's playing for the SEC championship game too.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on how many Big Ten teams. So until we do the Big Ten, I can't really fully answer that question. But yeah, I would think 3 or 4.
It's definitely gonna be 3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah,
but to have them for sure in the playoffs, I think you need to determine that first.
You know what the SEC championship game is going to be, dude? It's going to be Missouri against A&M.
And that would so much prove your point about unbalanced conference scheduling. That would be hilarious. I'm almost rooting for it now. To have Missouri versus A&M.
I mean, I really think you're insane to not think that. So LSU just lost their Heisman Trophy quarterback.
No, I do think A&M has a chance. I agree, but I think there's probably 6 teams in the SEC that have a chance.
But they don't play. They don't play Georgia. They don't play Bama. So they're gonna. There won't be a tiebreaker there. They'll have a better record because they don't play them.
But I argued Missouri might have the better chance over A&M. You know why?
That would be hilarious too. Mizzou, A&M, because the Big 12. But anyway, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I didn't think Mizzou because the coach has been there for more than a year, or he's not brand new. He's been there for I think this is his 4th year next year. They have also a similar easy schedule, and they have more returning production that I can trust.
I would agree with that if the game was in Columbia. The fact it's in College Station, I just don't see them winning that. I think it's
a fair point.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the other teams that could possibly go. You still have Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and others.
Yes, but their schedules are much harder than A&M's and Mizzou's. Once again,
I don't think it's a guarantee that fucking A&M goes, but I think based on that schedule, they're kind of
right in
that.
Look, I love the hot take. It's fucking January 10th. The season is like 2 years.
Buddy.
We're 2 days removed from the national championship game, so why not throw a fucking hot take out there? And I know you'll still have this hot take in August, and I love it because it's is grounded in reality because it could come true.
I feel better about this than I do the Louisville one. The Louisville one was like, okay, I just think Brom can make it work with some guys.
Like and they were in the ACC, so they could make it work easier with some guys.
Well, no, their schedule too. Like their schedule aligned. This is the same schedule as Louisville essentially, and except they're the most talented team arguably in the country from a composite rank, and then you put in a very good coach. I think this is a smash spot.
Weren't you high on A&M this year too, though? Coming into this year,
I took the over, but I've never been high on any Jimbo Fisher coach team.
True.
Yeah. Here's what even though all of these are at home, and so that's a big factor. Obviously, Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, and Texas. You might not give Notre Dame the credit. They
could even lose 2 of those, but I don't think they're gonna lose 2.
A 10-2 A&M team, if they lose 2 of those, which all 4 are at home, you're right.
I still think they could lose 1 on the road too, between that Florida and at Auburn spot.
They're not losing at Florida. Auburn, maybe I'll buy, but Florida, get the fuck out of here. They're going to destroy. They might win by 21 fucking points, dude.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Colby here.
I still think in the swamp, Florida is not a pushover in the swamp. They beat Tennessee last year.
Who is it? Who is their quarterback this year? Was it
Graham Mertz?
Mertz.
He's back
he had
next
a pretty
year.
good year.
I don't know. By his standards, yes. Anyway, okay, we got one more team, but before we do that, I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that is US based and legal in 40 different states. And look, they have P2P social betting, and look, it's the best way to bet. Bet directly against your friends and other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with verifiable outcomes. Plus tons of fun social features that give it a feel of basically like a social network of betting. Cut offers lower VIG and fully customizable odds. Create your own bets. That's always fun. Cut handles the payment side of things too, so you never have to chase down old Billy with the old baseball bat. You owe me money, you piece of shit. No, you don't have to do that. All right. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and much, much more. So what are you doing, folks? Head to cut.com. That's KUTT.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Look, Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long. They got NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, and college football. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players' fantasy stats and cash the fuck in, people. So what are you doing? Watch along, make picks, and maybe make a little extra cash on Underdog's mobile app or website, UnderdogFantasy.com. When you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN. Underdog will double your first deposit to up to $100. Once again, that's Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching. Start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, let's hop on over and talk about the team everyone's staying for. Go Doors, Vanderbilt Commodores.
So that everybody's waiting to hear.
Everyone's waiting. So the non-con, week 1, they are home to the Virginia Tech Hokies. Patty C, is that a win?
That's a hard L after how the Hokies performed at the end of the year.
Week 2, they're home to Alcorn State, who's breaking in a new head coach. Week 3, they head to Fulton County Stadium. Blast from the past at Georgia State. Week 4, they're at Mizzou. They get a bye week after that. Week 5, week 6, they're home to Alabama, then at Kentucky. Then they got a random MAC game, and week 8 is their home to Patty C's Ball State Cardinal. Week 9, they are home to Texas. Before week 10, they head to the Plains to take on Auburn. They also, week 11, they are hosting South Carolina. Week 12, they get a bye, and then they're at LSU and home to Tennessee to cap off the season. So the non-con is Virginia Tech, Alcorn State, at Georgia State, and home to Ball State. Lighter non-con than normal, but still a random away game at Georgia State. Give them a little cred. Your thoughts, Nick?
My thoughts are they are 2-2.
Yeah,
maybe 3-1. I was disappointed with Clark Lee last year. I thought Vandy would be better.
Their whole team transferred, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not high on Vandy. I think their 2 wins this year might be Alcorn State and Ball State.
They're
even Ball State is a little bit
they're
in question.
Their top 2 quarterbacks transferred out. One of them to LSU. I forget where the other one went.
I saw Will Shepard went to Colorado. They're very, very good receiver.
And their other starter went to Georgia. Their whole fucking team got picked in the portal. This team's gonna suck.
I see Virginia. I see the Hokies. I see some drone strikes.
Hello.
And I see the Hokies beating their ass pretty bad.
Where are the wins? Build me a bull run here. 6-6.
Get out of here.
They got 6-6. They got to get the Hokies week 1. Then Alcorn State and Georgia State. They got to start off 3-0.
And
then Ball State 4.
And South Carolina.
Maybe pull off an upset against Auburn.
At Auburn, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't see it happening.
Let me concern you a little bit about that Ball State game. They played in 2 one-score games against the 2 MAC champions in the last half of the season. A 7-point loss against Toledo and a 2-point loss against Miami of Ohio. And in the other 4 games in the last half of their season, they had 3 wins and a 3-point loss. I think they were figuring it out, Ball State, at the end of the year. Maybe they hand Vanderbilt a loss.
I just think the funny thing is that I don't think it's coincidence that Bama and Texas have road games at Vandy. I think the SEC scheduled that. They're like, all right, let's have one of your road games be a gimme. For Bama and for Texas, 2 of their 3 darlings. So it's come on, moving along. Vandy sucks. They're gonna have an awful year. It's only getting tougher.
Yeah. Again, if you're a championship caliber team, you want your hardest games at home. If you're trying to go bowling, you want your hard games on the road and your easy games at home. These are putting Alabama and Texas at Vandy. That's helping them get to the championship.
And Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the protected ones. Where the hell am I at? Let me get rid of this Vanderbilt schedule. Folks, so hold on. Let's talk about what is the hardest schedule, Nick. I mean, it's clear Florida, right?
For sure. With their out of conference, by far, hands down, they are insane to schedule that. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I thought the SEC had a blueprint on how you succeed in the postseason, and it seems like Florida
the samples.
It seems like they want to fire their coach. That's what it seems like. Like I don't know how far in advance they scheduled all these games, but they're absolutely insane. To
you
put
almost
Miami,
feel sorry
Florida
for
State and UCF on their out of conference schedule for sure. You do,
yeah. Then you remind yourself that the buyout's probably like $30 million. You're like, he'll be fine.
And he'll probably get hired back at Louisiana Lafayette when they fire Dave Sormeau.
There you go.
That's true. So I ranked the toughest schedules. Obviously, the Saban news dropped after that, but for me, the hardest non-cons were 1 Florida, 2 LSU, 3 Texas, 4 Vanderbilt, 5 Georgia, 6 Mississippi State, 7 Alabama, 8 South Carolina, 9 Texas A&M, 10 Kentucky, 11 Arkansas, 12 Tennessee, 13 Oklahoma, 14 Ole Miss, 15 Auburn, 16 Mizzou. My overall schedule, that was just non-con. The hardest schedule was Florida, number 1. 2 South Carolina, 3 LSU, 4 Arkansas, 5 Mississippi State, 6 I did have as the Texas Longhorns, 7 and mainly that's that Michigan game. 7 is the Alabama Crimson Tide. 8 is Vanderbilt. 9 is Tennessee, which actually I think that has moved up some now that I think about it, or further back that is. 10 Oklahoma, 11 Kentucky, 12 Georgia, 13 Auburn, 14 Ole Miss, 15 Texas A&M, and 16 Missouri. Does that sound accurate?
I'd say that's pretty fair. And again, one of the reasons why we kept on mentioning Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Missouri for possible playoff teams is that you have them ranked 14th, 15th, and 16th as far as overall schedule. Not only, well, you take Ole Miss and Missouri, they're teams that have won 10 games this past year, 10 plus games this past year. and then throw in A&M with the talent, the new head coach. I mean, that's why I think they're in the mix with Georgia, Bama, Texas, potentially others, LSU, Oklahoma, but I really think the SEC has maybe 6 teams, you could argue, if not more, that have a decent chance. The fans are hopeful that they could make it into this new expanded playoffs, but obviously it's only going to be 3 or 4, probably 4. So
do we know that? I mean, because look, we've seen Florida with 2 losses get into the New Year's 6 over a 1-loss Washington State team. We just saw Alabama with 1 loss get over to the college football playoff over an undefeated Florida State team. So maybe we start to see some 3-loss teams squeak into the college football playoff. Maybe it becomes 5. We've always been a little bit shocked by how much they fucking help the SEC out.
It's possible. I mean, if you look at 12, Colby and I talked about this before, and apparently it's not really determined yet as far as how many G5 teams will be.
Yeah, for the first 2 years, right now they thought it was going to pass this past week as far as 5 auto bids and 7 at-larges. That did not pass right now. So they're going to vote again next week. They thought they had that. Right now it's still 6 and 6 because the contract says for the first 2 years 6 and 6, meaning that would be 2 group of 5s right now. 2 group of 5s, being that the top 2.
We need the group of 5 to make noise. We need them to win.
Let's just say it's 2 group of 5, which leaves 10 teams.
I tend to think it's going to be the other one though. They're going to strong arm them and say, "Do you want us to leave you behind?" And then they're going to have to fucking cave in.
Okay, so if it's 11 P4s, we know the Big 12 and ACC are going to get 1 each, which would be 9.
Let's talk about that for a second though, because there's the way the Big 12 has 18 teams, the ACC has 17. I think it's highly likely, especially in the Big 12, that you might have a 1 or 2 loss team not make the championship game.
Highly likely or unlikely?
I think it's highly likely because of the scheduling.
Yeah, for sure.
So would you keep out, like, let's say Utah goes 10-2, would you put a 9-3 A&M in over a 10-2 Utah?
Well, precedent was set this year, taking Alabama over Florida State. So records don't matter anymore. We know
12, and this is why you need auto bids. It's because the 12 teams already flawed. It's already flawed from the start.
I mean, there's going to be years where the ACC or the Big 12 gets 2 in, but I guarantee you the SEC and the Big 10 are going to get at least 3 in every year, if not 4, because they are the major power players.
Yeah, I would say between the Big 10 and the SEC, expect 7 on average. Between the Big 12 and the ACC, expect 4 on average, 2 each maybe, and then expect 1 from the
there you go,
from the group of 5.
Yeah.
Maybe Notre Dame takes one of the ACCs.
That's true. Notre Dame's schedule is so easy next year too. Even if they lose to A&M, which I think they will. But folks, we'll be back next week to talk the Big 10. We're going to go through every single team in the Big 10. That'll be an even longer show because there's 2 more teams.
But there might not be any Nick Saban news on the front end.
True.
But of course, there may be Jim Harbaugh news.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Or James Franklin news, apparently, according to you.
Franklin with Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, we'll get over that in about 30 seconds.
Everyone give Patty C a follow on Twitter at PattyC831. NC Nick's on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. Like I said, next week, the Big 10 folks will be back with the College Basketball Experience in about an hour here. And let's go. All right. Until next time, this is the College Football Experience. Subscribe on YouTube, by the way. Subscribe. I see all the people watching this shit. Subscribe. Anyway, until next time, this is the College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot.